Devastating poll numbers? Apparently, that's what presidential campaigns are all about. Here's what former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had to say about President Biden's dreadful performance in the polls.
Right now, we must win the election. It's 1 year out. And just to remind, 1 year out from the election in 2011 for the 212, President Obama was not in good shape in the polls. One poll, 5, 11. He was not in good shape in the polls. But that's what campaigns are about. So what is it that is what drives you? What is your passion? Is it saving the planet? Is it protecting personal anatomy, freedom? Is it fairness in our education system and whatever? The election will make a difference, because if you care about justice, social justice, economic justice, environmental justice, personal freedom, the Democrats have to win this election. And then maybe in the unifying way, we can have some of these issues become bipartisan to save the planet and save our democracy and the rest. So when people say, oh, well, Biden's numbers are behind, I say, you know what? That's the way it is. That's the way it was for Obama. That's the way it is for him. He must win. And that's the path we're on.
But is that true? Journalist Matt Iglesias fact-checked what Nancy Pelosi had to say there in the interview and wrote on X that the polling was pretty close at times between Romney and Obama, but Obama almost always led and his coalition was advantaged in the Electoral College. Biden is currently way down, and I think the Electoral College skew is unclear. Dobbs has probably eroded Trump's edge, but to what extent? As for one category of voters, Black Americans, showing signs of slipping away from Biden in 2024, according to new reporting from the Washington Post. Now, Black voter turnout fell during the 2022 midterm elections compared to the previous midterms, and losing these voters could be fatal for the re-election of Joe Biden in 2024.
Only 24% of Democrats say they are better off financially under Biden, per a new FT Michigan Ross poll. Political statistician Nate Silver has voiced skepticism on Joe Biden's re-election run, saying Democrats would be taking a huge risk by replacing Biden, but they're also taking a huge risk by nominating him. If Biden can't keep up with the schedule of a typical sitting president running for re-election, or is prone to making errors when he does, voters and the media are going to notice that, and Biden will wear his 80-plus years like an albatross around his neck. I was kind of surprised to see Nate Silver even offering this kind of critique. He's not exactly what is considered to be an anti-establishment figure, but he says, look, I'm looking at the numbers, and of course there's risk associated with changing horses in midstream. That would be a rather unprecedented move. But also the numbers are looking so bad, and this is what Matt Iglesias obviously was pointing to. If you compare this to other races that were close, this looks even worse than those, because unlike Obama in 2012, Biden is actually behind, and meaningfully behind, in the necessary swing states to win.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big Nate Silver fan. I often find that he's kind of taken out of context, or sometimes he'll say what he thinks the polls are suggesting, what the trends are suggesting. Then I will see a lot of people like accusing him of advocating for that thing, as if he's saying that he doesn't like Biden and he wants Biden gone, when really what he's just pointing out is that historically Biden is extremely weak. He's the age question is huge. He's pointing out, part of running for president is actually campaigning, like generating enthusiasm, visiting these states where he's really down and bringing people back on board, or exciting people who are maybe going to show up on election day, maybe not. Is he capable of doing that? That's a question we don't exactly have answered. We don't have clear ways to tell. And really what I read the whole column he had, what Nate was saying is that we don't have access to this information, but the people around Biden do. And it would benefit, if you think keeping Trump out of office is important, it would benefit the country for them to speak up, because maybe Biden has it in him to really, to campaign harder than he did when he was 4 years younger during COVID and he didn't really have to do much.
Right.
Maybe he has it in him, but it seems like perhaps he doesn't. And I appreciated Iglesias pointing out what Nancy Pelosi said there about the polls was just not true. Absolutely. There were times in the Obama-Romney matchup where there was some polling for Romney showing him a point or a couple points ahead. That was generally general election polling, which does not matter. what we're talking about here with Biden is him being way behind in the 5 key swing states, which actually does matter.
Yes, by double-digit amounts.
Yes, plus the Electoral College advantage now heavily favoring Republicans, just given how
things continue unabated in Israel's assault on Gaza. They are now allowing for supposedly a 4-hour pause every day to allow people to escape northern Gaza. They are not allowing the Gazans to drive or to use any type of vehicles.
Yeah.
No cars, no bicycles, 6-year-old children, 75-year-old, 80-year-old grandmothers having to walk anywhere from 10 to 12 hours to get to safety.
People are likening it to the modern Trail of Tears.
And you're not allowed to stop. You're not allowed to look backwards on this trek. Reports of Israeli snipers, firing on hospitals. They are around the Shifa hospital. Israel is claiming that there is a big bunker underneath the Shifa hospital. There are varying reports on this. They have, provided supposedly the international community with documents to this effect. But in the past, we've seen them do this, and it turns out not the case. Folks online were citing things like when they had last year had claimed about 8 or 9 NGOs were terrorist organizations. They gave reams of documentation to the EU after basically attacking these organizations, and then months later, the EU decides no, there's nothing here. So very difficult to even make those assessments. Nevertheless, you've got people dying in this hospital because it's all basically completely dysfunctional now. And here is National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on CNN's Dana Bash. And this is just, one of the things that Matt Duss, who was in visiting us maybe a week or two before this took place, has written, is that the Biden administration's months, almost years long attempt to sort of establish the rules of international relations based upon in the justification for our support of Ukraine fighting back against Russian occupation and invasion. Matt Duss basically said, within a week or two of this conflict, everything they had worked on was up in flames. And here's another example of that.
So much for being here this morning. I just want to be clear. Does Israel need to do more to limit civilian casualties?
Well, first, Dana, every loss of innocent life, Palestinian, Israeli, anyone, is a tragedy, every single one. And we grieve for those who have been lost, those innocent lives who have been lost. At the same time, what Israel is facing is a terrorist enemy who hides among civilians, who uses civilians as human shields. And so it has an added burden of trying to prosecute this campaign against that terrorist group while distinguishing between terrorists and innocent civilians. And that doesn't lessen its responsibility to operate according to the rules of war. And we have continued to make that point both publicly and privately, and we will continue to do so as we go forward.
Is Israel operating according to the rules of war?
Well, Dana, I'm not going to sit here and play judge or jury on that question. What I'm going to do is state the principle of the United States on this issue, which is straightforward. Israel has a right, indeed a responsibility.
All right, just hold on for 1 second. How do you, you're stating a principle. You are obligated to do X. Are they doing X? Well, we're not in a position to assess.
Not my job.
Yeah.
it completely makes no sense.
What's the nature of obligation then?
Exactly. And also, if they're just as obligated to follow the rules of war, why are you prefacing it with any of this?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you rarely hear anyone preface with like, actually the international laws that occupied people are allowed to basically practice any means necessary to fight the occupation. You don't hear that so much in the context of before someone refers to Hamas's obligations for humanity. And obviously, like, don't condone those tactics, don't condone the killing of civilians. But I'm just trying to say that, we would never, ever expect anyone to preface what they expect of Hamas in not killing civilians by saying, technically speaking.
Yeah. If Hamas is the reason that Hamas should be condemned is because they target civilians, then that doesn't mean that killing them by also killing civilians is justified. Those are contradictory points if you're actually operating in a way that's consistent.
But just go back a little bit, because I want you to sort of like just watch this turn when the most obvious question possible is being asked, which is, you've said that there's an obligation for essentially, a client state to uphold the rules of war, and then you can't make that assessment? Go ahead.
Well, first, Dana, every loss of innocent life, Palestinian, Israeli, anyone, is a tragedy, every single one. And we grieve for those who have been lost, those innocent lives who have been lost. At the same time, what Israel is facing is a terrorist enemy who hides among civilians, who uses civilians as human shields. And so it has an added burden of trying to prosecute this campaign against that terrorist group while distinguishing between terrorists and innocent civilians. And that doesn't lessen its responsibility to operate according to the rules of war. And we have continued to make that point both publicly and privately. And
There are a lot of people in America that are sitting here going, okay, well, can you answer why Jews are so special? Because as white people in this country on university campuses, we are being taught that we are not allowed to have a voice. We have had to endure exactly what you're talking about, BLM. We've endured much worse than you have because it's in the actual textbooks. We are being told that we are systematically racist, that we are born wrong because of the color of our skin. And if we say anything, we'll lose everything. This is the typical experience on white campuses. So people, this is not whataboutism. This is like actually what we have been fighting for years. So it sort of arrived as, I think, for a lot of Americans, a surprise when they're saying, well, now that it's about Israel, which is something that's overseas, we need to, hand these university professors, we need to do something about this issue. Why weren't we trying to correct course on this issue? Why weren't donors pulling their funding out of these universities? Why weren't these same things being said for these last I would say 8 years of rampant BLM, white man can't do anything right, actively being taught in the classrooms. So there are people that are asking that question now. What I have said is that explicit calls for genocide, which was stunning to me to see that in Congress, are completely wrong. It is frankly crazy. I have not weighed in on the IDF's response in the same way that I have consistently said through every war, Ukraine and Russia, I don't want to be involved. I have said I don't want to be involved in Israel and Palestine, all these conflicts. My consistency seems to offend people, right? But I haven't made a single tweet or a single comment on IDF's response in Palestine. I haven't said a single thing about that. I have said it is always sad when a child dies. And the lack of humanity that I have seen from both sides has been very troubling for me. But to say that I have to weigh in and suddenly wave an Israeli flag and say things that, because you decide that you get to use my platform because it's personal to you, how is that fair to people? How is that fair? And then to go a step further and to suggest that it might be anti-Semitic, which is basically silence is violence, as a leftist tactic, to me feels very extreme.
This is not about a geopolitical dispute between Israel and Palestine. This is about an ideological mission to rid the world of Israel and the Jews. That's what I think people misunderstand.
Yeah, well,
welcome to a special edition of the Post-Duopoly Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, guys from Due Dissidence? What's up, Keaton? What's up, Russell?
What's poppin'?
What's up? What's going on, guys? Good to see you again. How's my sound? There's a guy with a weed whacker whacking weeds right outside my apartment window. Is it coming through okay?
Burbs.
I can't hear it. I don't know if anybody else can. But what's up, Nick? I didn't know if you were here, but what's up, Nick? How you doing?
Yeah, I literally just ran here late because I wasn't. I had a few runs I had to make, so that's why I come in a little bit late. But I'm glad I got here just on time, at least to see that last clip. It's been hilarious to see the fake right-wing populists that I've been calling out for quite a long time be exposed. It's just funny that they allow Israel to be the issue. Evangelical Christians, that they are telling anti-Zionist Jews that they're fake Jews. Like, that's the position that we're in right now. But what's popping? I've been on the panel with my boy Russell and Keaton. What's popping? Do this?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah,
it has.
Have you been called that? Just curious. Have either of you been called any sort of names because you're Jewish and you're Free Palestine? Like, have you been encountered anything like that?
I think those motherfuckers are scared of us, man. Like, we'll get. I'm serious, because they don't want to get into that conversation because they see what we say about it. You can't really argue with it, and they don't actually want that conversation to be had in public because they don't want people to be informed. They're not going to engage with us because we're actually going to have an answer. Here and there, you get a troll on X, but for the most part, no. And also, I mean, I'm half kidding. Another element of it, I've noticed the Zionists, except for really, really, really extreme committed Zionists, they know this is not going to look good, man. They're not saying this shit publicly. They don't want a record on social media. I think enough of them know, man, the hunter becomes the hunted and the canceler becomes the canceled. And I could end up being the canceled because the next generation's not buying it. And they're eventually going to be the ones making those decisions about who gets canceled. So I better just shut up and not put a record out there of what I think. Honestly, that's what I think it is, because I'm not seeing. And also, it's very confused what people are siding with, which I'm sure you've noticed, man. Some of the biggest Ukraine flag shit libs I know are like Free Palestine.
Yeah, we've gotten very little pushback in our comment section, even on Twitter, very, very little. And, we have a decent number of like conservatives who watch our show. We have a pretty viewpoint diverse show, but I don't know if they're just not speaking their mind on this issue because they're afraid that they'll piss us off and that they'll ruin the relationship. I don't know. Or there are some who I think there's some, to be fair, in the sort of conservative rank and file who are, if not Free Palestine, at least anti-Israel. as well in our experience. So, like, we have a couple of conservative people who support us on Patreon, so they call into our Q&As, and they don't seem to have an issue with what we're saying, which is fine. But yeah, we really haven't run into much of it at all. I just replied to Jake Tapper because Jake Tapper interviewed that Israeli student at MIT saying, you know, she doesn't feel safe on campus. And so I replied and I said, are you going to interview a baby in Gaza and ask if they feel safe in their hospital? You know, and that, because that was Jake Tapper's thread, not mine, I got some of them in the replies on that one. There's one guy,
sure,
I mean,
yeah,
you talk about the best name for a Zionist troll ever. The guy's name is Igor Schatz. I was born to be a Zionist troll on Twitter. Yeah, exactly. But generally speaking, very little pushback. And, you know, because we have a kind of a viewpoint diverse audience, our audience has given us pushback from time to time. Like, we're used to getting it a little bit on some issues, but this one, hardly any.
Nah.
That's awesome. And Nick, you were going to say something. I think you were going to say something. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I want to show you guys this in response to that Candace Owens video. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Ben Shapiro been having a hard time.
That's coming up, Nick. That's coming up.
Oh, okay. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah. That's coming up.
I'll pass to you, CJ. I'll pass to you.
Yeah. All right. So it sounds like we want to get back to the topic. So let's get back to the topic, and not to cut Nick off, but he's
it's all good. It's all good.
The show, because I do want to fully play this video.
Yeah.
Because Nick and Russell and Keaton, I personally haven't seen this video until today. I didn't know there was this beef going on until I saw the Ben Shapiro video.
I heard about it. I didn't look into it. I heard that there's been tension recently because Candace Owens, along with Tucker Carlson, there's like a handful of people that getting this right on the quote unquote populist right free speech crowd. You would think this would be a layup. Right? This is a time for you to virtue signal. Right. It's a great marketing opportunity to show that you're really principled on free speech. But Israel has them that bought. Like, this, to me, this is a layup for them. Like, this is a perfect opportunity if you're a right-wing populist, free speech marketing. But like, this is your perfect opportunity to grow your audience, to legitimize yourself. But they are so owned by Israel, they can't. They can't do it. But go ahead, CJ, your presentation. The point being that Candace Owens is one of the few people that I heard her speaking out, but I don't follow her work like that. So this clip was interesting to seeing it in action. But go ahead, CJ.
I do want to give the good fellows that do dissonance a chance. If you want to preface this, if you've heard anything, because we both, Nick and I both, this is new to us. I don't follow these two in particular. Candace Owens. This might be. Is this the second segment I've done since I've been doing this of her ever?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So so either of you heard of this, and if so, just briefly kind of give us your general thoughts before we get into this clip again.
Well, I saw the Shapiro clip of him sort of criticizing her, and you know, look, this will be a test for how committed they are to free speech over there at the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
Although in the clip that you played, you know, I didn't exactly hear "Free Palestine" coming from her either. You know,
absolutely
no, it's not that. It's not that. It's go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know, I've talked about Candace Owens before on our show. I don't know if you've seen it on Prime. There's a documentary called Uncle Tom about black conservatives, and she's heavily featured in it. And I came, who was the guy who ran for president? The pizza guy. What was his name? I always forget his name.
The guy who died.
Herman Cain.
Herman Cain. Yeah.
Herman Cain.
Cain is in it a lot. Of course, Thomas Sowell is in it a lot. And, you know, I came away from it feeling like she was an honest actor, even if you disagree with her views or some of her views. She's also been recently, she's pregnant right now. She's been out on a college tour where, you know, it's not hard with a lot of these students to get the better of them. So she's been coming off pretty well on that tour with some of the ridiculous students standing up and saying, how do you feel about the fact that your presence on campus makes me feel unsafe? And I thought she answered it very well. Life sucks. Get a helmet. I'm 6 months pregnant. I don't have time for this.
Russell, are you concerned the baby might be yours?
No, I am not.
I've seen what I know the most of Candace Owens is from Black Twitter, where she is mercilessly dragged every single day. Like the idea that that a lot of white conservatives have, that she speaks for any black community, is false. One thing that she said before, and Sabby covered this in detail, that explained how fraudulent she is. Like her whole shtick is black people need to shut the fuck up about race. Racism isn't real. But meanwhile, she started off by suing her college for racial discrimination. So like it's obvious.
But was that? I mean, she was. I mean, she says she's one of these. I left the left people. Was that when she was?
Yeah,
left?
that's a
or
common
is that post left.
Yeah, that's a very common career path. She took it. You can make the argument that she does it better than most. That's why she climbed the ladder. But she's following the trend. Now, one thing I would say about the Uncle Tom thing, which I think is funny, and I think that legitimate discourse. The only thing I would criticize that if that documentary was just full of black conservatives, because I think Candace Owens is playing a role, is selling out her community to capital. But don't just pretend that black conservatives are. You know what I mean? Make that film and include Jim Clyburn, Eric Adams,
Hakeem Jeffries.
Basically, you said I don't know anything about the film other than your intro.
The movie's a straight documentary. Like it really doesn't take a side. Like it interviews them.
Does it feature any black liberals before we move on with the segment? I'm just curious.
Nah, it's not what it's about. Like it's just like, hey, there are people in the black community who have these views who are not heard. So let's hear what they have to say. I mean, it's not supportive. It's not like a Daily Wire documentary, but it's not critical. It just it shows like, hey, there are people who believe this who are not used, and that's true. I mean, that is an intellectual tradition that is not represented.
Like that, where's the black Marxists and radicals? Right? But anyway,
I mean, it's true. Although, wouldn't you say that exists? Because like I can't think of another documentary I've seen like that not done completely by right-wing media, and I can't even think of them doing something like that.
Yeah. But anyway, CJ, we can.
Let's. I just rewinded a little bit so we can catch that last part, the point that she was making, and this is because when she's saying people are getting upset, I believe she's referring to Ben Shapiro and other conservatives in her community, in her world. But let's listen again, and then I'll get to the reaction from the Ben Shapiro clip.
It calls for genocide, which was stunning to me to see that in Congress, are completely wrong. It is frankly crazy. I have not weighed in on the IDF's response in the same way that I have consistently said through every war, Ukraine and Russia, I don't want to be involved. I have said I don't want to be involved in Israel and Palestine, all these conflicts. My consistency seems to offend people, right? But I haven't made a single tweet or a single comment on IDF's response in Palestine. I haven't said a single thing about that. I have said it is always sad when a child dies. And the lack of humanity that I have seen from both sides has been very troubling for me. But to say that I have to weigh in and suddenly wave an Israeli flag and say things that, because you decide that you get to use my platform because it's...
So Candace Owens is China now. She's taking a she's not picking a side. She's neutral in this conflict.
She's Switzerland.
And that has become a issue for people like Ben Shapiro, and we'll get to his clip.
You want to know why? You want to know why? Like, even though Candace Owens is not saying free Palestine, this still works in our favor. Because as I mentioned, as everyone knows, Israel only exists and they only escape the clause of international law because of the United States. So if Candace Owens' policy ambitions become reality, that aligns with the left, whether she said free Palestine or not. That's why Ben Shapiro is freaking out. I don't know if Candace Owens is smart enough to realize that, because her saying that the United States shouldn't support Israel, that means the Israel army is fucked, fam. It's over. The Zionist project is over the second the United States pull out. And Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire and the rest of the right wing people freaking out at her, trying to gently nudge her and let her know that. Like, you know what you're implying, and good for her, I guess, for standing her ground, because I'm sure some people probably nudge her and whisper and tell her what the fuck you saying actually means. Israel is not a state. Israel and Zionism is a failed project. Zionism was all about giving sovereignty to Jewish people. There is no sovereignty. Israel is ran by the United States. They can't defend themselves without the United States. So Zionism inherently was never fulfilled. It failed. But I'll pass it to Keaton or CJ. We can continue.
Yeah, so what I wanted to say, damn, I just forgot. Yeah, I'll come back to it after I play
That's
a little
okay.
bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, look,
it's right on the top. Go ahead.
the Daily Wire occupies this kind of strange space in right-wing circles because they're not quite MAGA. Like Shapiro goes after Trump a lot. They're more the DeSantis anti-woke lane than they are the MAGA lane. But it's true, more broadly speaking, that, obviously there's a lot of hypocrisy within the MAGA movement on this issue, including, and most importantly, most significantly, Trump himself, who's all in for Israel despite, all of this America First talk and how we're not going to get involved in wars overseas and things like that. So this is something that they're going to have to sort out over there. But Nick, I think you're right. Like, the fact that she is talking like this is ultimately a gift for the left because
right.
On top of everything else you said, you're just not going to get right-wingers chanting Free Palestine. Like, they're just not going to take the side of the colonized Muslims. Like, it's just not going to happen. Yeah, it's the best you can get, right.
So I remember what I was going to say, and this is the reason why the white power structure doesn't quite fully trust even the sellouts that they have. Is because they can never go, is this person really going to go all the way on every issue? Right. And Obama did. But then you have people like Candace Owens, and I don't know it's because of anything in particular, because she's black or because she's just trying to be interventionist. I don't know what her reasons behind, but just to say this is the reason why. It's always like, yeah, you can be a house Negro, but you can never really take the reins, be the captain of the ship, because they just don't know if you're just gonna go back to the wild. You get what I'm saying? Like you're gonna go back to the wild. Go ahead.
Yeah, wait till I show you guys this receipt. Maybe at the end of the segment we see.
I mean, she is right wing, but she's not born and bred into Zionist ideology the way Shapiro is. And it seems like unless you are born and bred into that ideology, it's really impossible for you not to see.
Yeah, Shapiro's
this
like
for the horror that it is.
Yeah. Like, isn't he like Mossad or something like that? But anyway, to your point, CJ, wait till you see this receipt. I might throw it on later to show where Alan Dershowitz cancels Obama, where he said, I'm never ever gonna talk to Barack Obama ever again, simply because Barack Obama, like, man, what's going on in Israel is crazy, bro. And Alan Dershowitz canceled them, so that's going to be a mini segment for later. But
meanwhile, he has Epstein on speed dial, though. Okay, let's continue.
Well, not anymore.
Personal to you, how is that fair? How is that fair? And then to go a step further and to suggest that it might be anti-Semitic, which is basically silence is violence, as a leftist tactic, to me feels very extreme.
This is not about a geopolitical dispute between Israel and Palestine. This is about an ideological mission to rid the world of Israel and the Jews. That's what I think people misunderstand.
Yeah, well, Jews live very comfortably in the United States of America, so they're not going to be. I mean, obviously, Jews.
Yeah, how you get in Germany
but Ben Shapiro cannot like that last comment. They live comfortably here. It almost seems like she's being flippant about the issue. Is that how it's being received? Do you think that's how it's being received?
This is extremely weird, fan, because I don't follow her. The only thing I see from her is Candace getting dragged by Black Twitter. But the position of Daily Wire and their allies is so bad. For the first time in my existence, I am watching Candace Owens embarrass someone with ease. That's how weak their argument is. But go ahead, Russell or CJ, whoever wants to chime in.
I mean, as I said, from looking at her, I don't read her. I probably don't know as much about her work as some other people do, so maybe there's things that would change my mind. But from what I've seen, she means what she says. That I get the impression she is committed to the ideas that she espouses. I don't feel like it's a grift, so it doesn't surprise me that she's willing to take the other side of an issue. I mean, that kind of confirms the way that I read her. Doesn't mean I agree with her or align with her.
You're the first person to have that I've heard to have the assessment that you believe the things she's saying she really believes, because I completely the opposite. This is a complete grift, saying things just like Nick says all the time. Nick and I can play this same bit that she's playing, and we can make tons of money.
Well, how do you know how easy it would be for me?
And she figured that out. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I wasn't there. My bad. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, I was just gonna get back to the video, because I do want to get to the Ben Shapiro video and any other reaction that you guys may have.
But at that
Germany
point,
too.
if you feel that way, why would she take this position? There's no upside for her to take a position that puts her on the other side of the people who have put her where she is.
I think there is a split in MAGA community. So I don't think she's going outside of what her community is saying, because there is a certain segment of the MAGA community that is anti-interventionist. Sure. Yeah, and I believe she's speaking to that group more of like not even Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz is on Israel, but that sort of Matt Gaetz sort of crowd. But go ahead.
Right.
I can't see who's talking.
Yeah, but they're not signing her checks though. You know,
that's true.
She's putting herself in a bad position, because Ben is freaking hard. You know,
well, we have a video.
He probably has a freaking IDF video game at home.
Let's play his video, and if we need to come back to her video for more explanation, we will. Because his video is only 30 seconds, and we can always come back to hers. So let's do that. This is the video, Nick. I believe you were going to play. I don't know if it was another version of this, but this is the 30-second version of it, and let's listen.
Yes, the question is about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this is disgraceful. Without a doubt.
Her behavior.
I think she's been absolutely disgraceful.
I think he said she works for my company, and then I think you heard the rest part. She's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that's what he said.
And you guys know how...
This is the kind of thing, man. It's not like a disagreement about tax policy. He could pull her off the air. I'm sure it's in her contract that she serves at his pleasure, that he can pull her off. So that's a big risk that she's taking. And she probably has a non-compete clause where for a certain period of time, she wouldn't be able to strike out on her own either.
I think Candace Owens is big to the point where she realized that if she got fired by Ben Shapiro for standing up for free speech, she can literally create her own fucking brand.
I was just going about the same
Eventually,
thing.
sure.
I get your point, Russell.
That's all upside. That's all upside for her.
I understand your point, though. I understand what you're saying. I get your point, Russell. One more thing from this clip. Ben said her behavior. You notice that he doesn't mention her argument, because from what I've seen, was she yelling at the person that she was just talking to? Was she calling him names? Is she's calling out Ben Shapiro by name? Is she insulting anyone who disagreed with her? I haven't seen that. So why do he bring up her behavior? Almost because he don't have an answer on her argument. So that's something that immediately perked up when I heard this clip. Behavior? What the fuck you mean by that? Disgraceful behavior. What are you, a hall monitor now? Anyway, let's continue. You guys know that Zionists have nothing but civility politics, nothing but this virtual signaling, facts, feelings over facts, bullshit that they do now.
But this is why he can't fire her, because they've already dug in on the anti-cancel culture stuff, on the supposed free speech stuff. Like, I don't think their brand could survive if he fires her for it.
I mean, I gotta say, and I know you guys don't traffic in the culture war as a distraction, which is wise, but I do. so what I'm gonna say
is entertaining to you. It feels like it's entertaining. It can be entertaining though.
It is, but I think part of it is coming from the working class. I always understood how damaging a lot of that signaling is. So I always felt like you're never gonna get the working class movement you need without making it clear that you didn't come to the party with these people. So there's always been a reason. Like, for example, I'm losing interest now because I feel like, I think anybody who's paying attention does, the tide is turned. The tide is turned. And I'm seeing it in the fact that people like Ben Shapiro, people like Matt Walsh, they're really desperate for content now. Because the Bud Light thing, the Target thing, it scared the crap out of the woke washing corporations. So now they're really not putting out any content
Are
that they can. What's up?
So I haven't been following this, so that's interesting. So like they're adjusted to the right wing outrage farm. That's interesting.
Everyone is afraid, well, because it hit the bottom line. They could ignore it as long as it wasn't costing them anything, or whatever they lost from conservatives they picked up from liberals. But when Bud Light put the fear of God in these corporations, everyone's afraid that they're only one misconceived ad away from permanent brand collapse.
Why, and to this point, Russell, that's why the culture war and following the culture war hurts my brain. Yeah. Because how do these same right wingers, how do these same right wingers who engage in the action that you're describing not see the parallels between their actions and the cancel culture left that they criticize? Because they are in a culture war against the woke social justice warrior pink-haired college girl, right? Because she engaged in authoritarian tendencies. She want to cancel people who don't agree with their social takes. Isn't that what the right wing is doing with Bud Light? That's the first reaction I had to the whole thing. Like, you guys do the same thing and don't realize it. But go ahead, Russell, and then we get back to CJ.
I mean, I've always felt like their defense of speech is a mile wide and an inch deep, because I grew up with these people. I grew up with these people with their album labeling crusades, and they were the cancel culture people. Yep. The only reason they've had an issue with it is because the liberals took over the institutions and they got on the wrong side of those tactics. But they effectively struck back with that. So now you got to remember, and to your point about a lot of this being a grift, you know, these guys are you got whole channels that are built around outrage about trans women in sports. Their whole channel, that whole identity of their channel is that. The whole identity of their channel is the latest advertisement to get angry about. You know where I could see it's over? The only Christmas ad they could find to get pissed off about, the theme of the ad was just they played Meatloaf's I Can Do Anything for Love. And so the people are doing all the annoying things you got to do for Christmas with the glue gun and putting together the displays and the decorations, and they just decide to rebel against it and smash everything up. I won't do that. I won't do that. They're trying to gin up outrage about that ad. Now, when that's all you got, it's over. It's over. You know, so this is their business, to keep people mad about this and forget about all these channels that have built their entire careers about getting pissed off about Disney. Jesus, man, like these guys are going to have to go work at Cinnabon now. They're freaking, now that they're like, yeah, no, we're going to hold on with Blade for 2 years and actually make it good.
I wonder if workers at Cinnabon, is there a higher rate of diabetes if you work at Cinnabon?
It's a good question.
Of all the sugar, because that's some of the most sugar. I'm only saying that because I used to work in a mall where they had a Cinnabon, and I used to eat them all the time. I went to the doctor one time. It was like, "Hey, you borderline diabetes? What the fuck is going on?" It was that sugar. It was literally that sugar. They was like, "Why did what the hell? How did this spike?" But anyway,
there's nothing like a Cinnabon.
Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I just say this one last thing. I'll pass to you, CJ. There's nothing funnier to me than a grown man in their 40s launching a campaign to boycott Frozen in Disney. I'm like, what? Like, I have seen so many examples of this where someone posts a serious blog like, "Oh my God, enough of the woke Disney. I call for all of us to boycott." I'm like, you watching this in the first place? Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Listen, man, you have got view counts. You have got view counts on some of those channels that people in our space could only dream of. Even the most successful people in our space. You'll see these guys live streaming to freaking 50,000 people when a Disney movie drops.
It's so fucking crazy.
No, the kids shows my daughter watches all the time. Like, just cartoons, just stuff is literally I'll be like, how the hell are you getting that? So I'm starting to think. Anyway, I might start doing something like that for my daughter on YouTube. So look out for that channel. All right, let's get back to Ben Shapiro.
Start a sub channel, man. Start a sub channel.
It's a 30-second video. Let's see if we can get through. But if you want to stop, let me know.
Yes, the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this is disgraceful. Without a doubt, I think
Who are these people?
and I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
But you notice he didn't take it as far as I'm gonna remove her and remove a stream of money for myself. And he looks uncomfortable. He's kind of stepping back and forth at certain points of this interview, or at certain points where he's speaking, and so he looks a little uncomfortable to me.
And this is the point we were making earlier. He's not in the position to remove her because that was only help Candace and hurt him. And also remember, he's a capitalist, so this whole thing is driving him money, bro. Like having this dispute, like he's not gonna ever say that in front of a crowd. But why would he get rid of his main attraction? I mean, if I'm wrong or prove wrong, but there's no way that would do that unless there's like overwhelming backlash from the community, which there is not. But go ahead, whoever wanted to chime in.
I mean, Zionists are rabid about this kind of thing. You know, it's religion. Right? It's not, that's what I'm saying. It's not like a disagreement about anything else. Like a committed, as I'm assuming, that is 200% real, that Ben Shapiro is a bone deep Zionist. That is the kind of thing that on principle he could pull her off the air if he doesn't like what she's saying. If Candace Owens went further and turned around and took the Palestinian side, I bet you he would pull her off. Screw the money.
He would have to in order to keep his brand. I mean, all of this is to me is to keep his brand, because if she sends something against his views and he's getting paid off of it, I don't think he would have any issue with it. But if it's something that he can capitalize on with his audience, I believe he would. But here's a interesting viewpoint. I believe this is a conservative. This is a conservative outlet here, AF Post, and it says, "Here are the absolutely disgraceful remarks from Candace Owens." And I wanted to read that description because that's what we were listening to. This interview or this little short segment with Candace Owens. Now we heard what she said, but you listened to the description of, and I would assume that this AF group is a Zionist or pro-Israel at least, and it sounds like this guy she brought on is pro-Israel, maybe pro-Zionist, or at least here to give the other perspective, to say this is why people are mad. And so let me play what he says, and then we can close this segment.
Doctors, lawyers, I really struggle when people start using, things that have happened in the past that are abhorrent, like slavery, to say that, like, if this doesn't happen, then slavery is going to be back, or if this doesn't happen, then it's going to be the Holocaust too. I think there's a lot more meaningful chatter and discussion that we can have. We don't have to resort to that kind of,
History repeats itself if you forget it. You have to be conscious, and Jews especially. Unfortunately, I'm a grandchild of all four of my grandparents are Holocaust survivors.
Yeah, so what do you think of the Holocaust survivors and the Jewish people?
Go ahead.
Yeah, because they're rounding us up in New York because we're earning too much money, right? That's why the Holocaust happened. Jews were getting too rich, and so they needed to do something about them. And Germany's solution was to just kill them. Jews exist outside of Israel. If we need a Jewish state to prevent ourselves from being Holocausted, then why am I walking around a free man? It's bullshit. It's nonsense.
I mean, we already have New York State as a backup.
Right. Yeah.
There's a large Jewish community, actually, several places out here in California. There's one in Long Beach, Orthodox Jew, and Long Beach has an Orthodox Jew community. And then in the Ritzy area near Beverly Hills is another large Jewish community over there.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was never sold on the idea. And like I said, I'm Jewish myself. Most of the people in the audience know me well enough by now to know that. But I never really bought the idea that we needed a Jewish state after World War II. If we did need one, you had Germany split in 4 parts after World War II, and they're the ones who did the crime. So that's where the Jewish state should have been settled. People don't understand how just blatantly racist it is to say that some Arabs should have to pay for the crimes of Nazi Germany, and that's what Zionism is in this form, at least.
Right.
It's saying that the Palestinian people are on the hook for the crimes of the Third Reich.
Well, and in the end, it's a religious claim to a right to the land that we would call out if it were any other religion making that kind of claim.
Right.
Chuck Schumer, the head of the Senate, stood up in front of AIPAC and very derisively said that the land is theirs because it's in the Torah, and dismissively said, but they don't believe in the Torah, meaning Muslims. They don't believe in the Torah. If those words came from any other religion, if you saw a Muslim say, and which we sometimes do, and they love to draw attention to it, if you see an imam say something along those lines like, but they are the infidels, they're going to be all over that, right? Oh my God, look at that ignorance. Look at that bigotry. If you see a Christian say something like that, if you see a Christian conservative say, yes, and we have a right to this because God said it was ours. Oh my God, these religious fanatics. So why do you not see a Jewish state that way? If you have a Muslim say this should be a Muslim state, we lose our minds. If a Christian says that, we lose our minds. So why is it you don't see that a Jewish state has the same issues, right? It is a theocratic premise inherently. You are admitting that it's not about that Jews were there already. It was a small minority of Jews were there in 1948 before a bunch of Ashkenazis came from Eastern Europe and drove out the Arabs who were living there. So in the end, you're claiming it based on religion. If you're talking about length of stay, the Jews had a kingdom there for about 200 years that ended about 700 BC. That's it. That's it. If what you're talking about is occupation of the land qualifying you, the Romans have a better claim. The Greeks have a better claim. Iran, the successor state of Persia, has a better claim. There's no grounds for this other than a religious claim.
Now, and to your point, Russell, that's why I want people to know that everything that Israel and the West say about Hamas is a projection. Because like Russell said, imagine if people of Hamas was caught saying what Zionists literally say. You hear propagandists, they say, well, we got to kill babies because Hamas say they want to kill Jews. Well, Israel literally killed Palestinians, and then their citizens cheer it. They have picnics and many holidays celebrating the death of Palestinians. So the point is, like, I don't even have to take the time to defend Hamas. The point, everything you guys say Hamas is Israel times 10. But let's
I had when I went out to the Free Palestine protest on, it was the day after, right? It was October 8th. And I mostly filmed the counter protests from the Zionists because it was fascinating. And one of the things they were saying, we got these two women who had been in the IDF, who were Israelis, saying, yes, you will never see Israelis and Jews celebrating the death like they celebrate the death. You will never see, we never celebrate like that. Oh my God, man. I mean, anyone with an internet connection can find 1,000 videos of Israelis celebrating like that. But do I think they're lying? No, I think they're brainwashed. They're brainwashed from birth to think like that. I'm sure you guys saw this video that went around showing like Israeli children on tanks who are just being brainwashed into Zionism. So what would you do if you saw an Arab? I would shoot them, right? I mean, that they're a product of that, right? And then they grow up. Well, yeah, you have universal conscription.
All right, let me play the last few seconds here, and then we can close.
What do you make of the Holocaust survivors and the Jewish people in New York City that are protesting on behalf of Palestine? That's a great question.
I think that there's a very strange, bizarre, I mean, it's the same people that you would condemn as the people, the white people who bowed down to BLM protesters, who hate themselves and feel a certain sense of guilt. They feel a certain sense of, I think a lot of the ideologies on the woke left, to the extent that things are good and prosperous and virtuous, they condemn as bad. And the things that are broken, morally and depraved, they see as good. This is the lens by which the far left views things. And I think these Jews that happen to be politically far left and maybe are not that connected to their Judaism or are maybe culturally Jewish, but don't have a strong Jewish upbringing. Not to say that politics and being a Jew.
I hope you're not offended. Are either of you offended by what he's saying here?
He's right. I'm not connected to my Judaism very strongly. I gotta say. He's right.
I mean, I like a good pastrami on rye.
Yeah, I mean, food's good, but
there's a great deli, a couple of great delis in Beverly Hills. Actually, somebody put me on to when I used to work out there. But let me let him make his point, and then we can close.
Go hand in hand with the same political identity. But my point is, just like the white people who in mass were bowing down and feeling guilty about themselves simply for being white, or people who feel guilty for being successful, or the anti-capitalists who say anyone who has something is necessarily bad. Some people buy into that sort of masochism of hating themselves to gain favor with people who want their destruction. It's really sick.
So would you say that in order to be a Christian, a Catholic, you have to support the Vatican? Like you can't be a Jewish person that doesn't support the state of Israel. Is that what you're implying? Yeah, well, because I have Jewish friends that are pro-Israel, and I have Jewish friends that say that they just do not support Zionism at all, and that they think that the creation of the Israel state is something that is political and has nothing to do with actually the Jewish faith at all.
This is not good. I'm just saying for Israel that you have some, and we can close this here, that they have some like Candace Owens with a big platform who's speaking to people who you would typically say, oh, you should be in the camp of pro-Israel. Speaking like this, this is not good for the state of Israel. Go ahead. Anybody wanted to chime in?
The other guy there is actually making a decent point by accident. He just doesn't mean it. He's saying hey, you're a right-wing scumbag in every other respect. Why aren't you a right-wing scumbag on this issue? You don't seem to have empathy for anyone else. Why do you have empathy for the Palestinians? What's wrong with you? Don't you understand? You're buying into the left-wing mind virus of human empathy and compassion and peace. That's what he's saying. And he has a point. Candace Owens, if you can see the light on this, so why not give the left another look on a whole host of issues where you are, as this guy says, wrong. Now, this guy would say she's right on all those other issues and wrong on this one. But what he said, his lecture actually does make sense. He just has the morality part twisted.
Now, and to your point, that's exactly what I was about to bring up as well. It shows their mindset as well, because he view any white allies who want to end institutional racism as self-hating, the same way he views Jewish people who want to end genocidal violence as self-hating. So what does that tell him? What does that say about what he view as his legacy, what his people come from? It come from violence, state violence, colonialism and violence. And if you reject that, if you reject colonialism and state violence, you are self-hating. If you're not backing,
it's the same thing here. It's the same thing in the United States. You're un-American. Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
No. That pretty much right my point.
Well, I made this point in the past on our show, but I would like to make it here as well. Zionists, to use a phrase that they have, put out there, Zionists use Jews like Russell and myself as human shields. They really do, because they hide behind us. And what this guy is saying that, in order to be Jewish, you have to support Israel, that simply perpetuates that all Jews support Israel, which, of course, in this context where Israel is so clearly in the wrong, that clearly just perpetuates more hatred of Jews. So you're actually putting me in more danger as a Jewish person by putting out there that if I am Jewish, I must therefore support Israel.
So I want to add to the segment. I think this is a good time to go this on. Not a long part, just a little addition regarding Ben Shapiro and his lies. Ben Shapiro, we all know he's sold out. He's an agent of the establishment. He definitely is some sort of Mossad agent in some way. They his willingness just to how some people being cautious about this. No, he's all out propaganda for genocide. He was there on the front lines calling people who accurately said that Israel was bombing hospitals. He said we are committing blood libel. He's there to repeat every single IDF and Israeli talking point. So there's been a guy who's been slaying Zionists recently Norman Finkelstein, and people have been begging him to shut Ben Shapiro up. Ben Shapiro has been so bad. Once again, I've seen people on the right that seen how.
Can I just answer that super chatter real fast, because that's a bleed over from our show.
Yeah, he super chatted us. Samuel said,
I don't want this guy to think we're mad.
Samuel said, he gave us a super chat on our show that says, I don't like it when due dissidents and RBN overlap. And we thought it meant he didn't like that we came on each other's shows. Turns out what he meant, according to the super chat, is that he doesn't like when we're both broadcasting at once. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
we got you.
We got you.
We got you. We realized our mistake. Yeah, man, it's cool.
So
and that was our mistake, not yours. We should have interpreted it right. Yeah.
I have noticed for the last week or so that people have been asking Norman Finkelstein to debate Ben Shapiro, and Norman Finkelstein is notoriously offline. Like, if you guys don't know him, So when this thing first started, he was like, "Who is Ben Shapiro? Why should I debate him?" I still remember that was his initial reaction. And I don't know who this guy is.
We interviewed him twice. You guys should interview him. You should interview him. That would be a great show.
That would be a great show.
Yeah, I saw your guys' show with him. But he's so offline, and I know he wasn't bullshitting, right? Because when this dialogue about him debating Ben Shapiro coming up, because there were so many clips of him destroying Zionists, he was like, "I don't know who this guy is." Like, I'm not really worth my time. But he had a tweet. He had a tweet where, like, "I don't know who this guy is, but if you guys want me to debate him, I guess I'll debate him if he's down." I still remember that tweet. But Russell, go ahead if you want to chime in real quick.
We had some dead air, and he lives out in Coney Island, and I'm a big fan of this movie, so I just thought it would be funny to ask this very serious guy this. So I go, hey Norm, you ever seen The Warriors? And he's like, I think so. Was that movie from the 50s? I'm like, no, man.
And then Russell explains it to him. He's like, all right, anyway, so we're gonna move on.
Yeah,
no interest.
No interest whatsoever.
He's a straight up intellectual, man. If you ain't talking about books, if you're not talking about history, bro, he don't want to fucking hear it. The most offline, and there's so much honor like in how offline he was. Because I remember the very beginning of the discourse. I don't know what this guy is, but if he's down, I'm down. I'm like, super naive, have no idea what he signed up for. And I am sure that he then later, after making this tweet, after getting blown up, finally Googled who Ben Shapiro was, and he was utterly disgusted. So Norman Finkelstein in the year 2023, the month of November, discovers one of the most disgusting Zionist propaganda for the first time ever. And ever since it was clear that he just now learned who Ben Shapiro was, he's been going hard in the paint because he's just been utterly disgusted that someone like this can even exist. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna show you just one example. They're not a long segment. They're just wrapping up the Ben Shapiro part. He has a whole video where you can tell, because I've been following this in order. You can tell this was the moment where he looked into Ben Shapiro and he was so upset he decided to do a reaction video to it. He decided to do a tweet thread. He's like, how is this even possible that someone like this exists? So now, after these calls for debates, Ben Shapiro, radio silent. He loves to debate college freshmen, for example. Mm-hmm. And Norman Finkelstein being so disgusted at who Ben Shapiro is, he went from, "Oh, you guys want me to do this debate? All right, I guess I do if you want me to." Now he's bloodthirsty. Like, Nick, let me ask this motherfucker. This is my interpretation. This is how I view this. So then this is a banger of a tweet. What likes is it now? It was at 80,000. Almost 100,000 likes. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, 3 million. This is like viral.
Yeah.
Absolute.
He'll never debate Norm. He'll never debate. He would be complete. Yeah.
You guys see what Norman Finkelstein did to Alan Dershowitz, right? It's like,
oh yeah,
there's no fucking
Took him
way.
apart.
Right.
So this is a fucking banger of a tweet, man. Norman Finkelstein.
Well,
said,
he just had that.
I'm gonna read it for people who haven't seen it yet. He
Yeah,
said, if I re-enroll in college as a freshman, will Ben Shapiro then agree to debate me? That's fucking banger. But go ahead, Russell.
Yeah. Did you see he debated the guy from the Free Press with I don't know, there was like this comedy club owner moderating.
Yeah, they do it at the Comedy Cellar. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just destroyed him. I mean, none of these guys can come at him because the facts are not on their side. They just how do you defend genocide?
I still need to watch this video. This one right here. But how do you debate this knowing that a motherfucker went through your
the entire
life,
area of Palestine.
Like,
At the time, Israel and Transjordan.
Dismantle him. Like, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to read anything he said. But he doesn't straw man Ben Shapiro like Ben Shapiro does. He like, all right, this is what he says, and this is why he's wrong. So Ben Shapiro sees this too. He's like, bro, there's no way I can debate this guy. No fucking way.
Did he actually go through and take apart Ben Shapiro's arguments?
Yeah, there's a big.
I didn't see this thread.
Brett, I guess I'll read.
Wait, there's a video.
I saw that. I saw that main tweet, but I didn't see this thread.
Yeah, I'll read the actual since you haven't seen it. Breathtakingly brilliant Ben Shapiro, very sarcastic, exposes lies about Israel. Ben Shapiro states that in 1922, the British government announced in a white paper that the Transjordan area, 70% of Palestine, will be sliced off and made an Arab state. That will become Jordan. And then pretty much this thread debunks that. He had quite a few of these threads, actually. Actually, am I trying the right one? Actually, no. I didn't have the right one up. My bad. This is the one I'm supposed to be sharing. This is the thread I was reading off of. And there's quite a few of these Twitter threads. You see how this is number 4. Norman Finkelstein was so upset when he discovered who Ben Shapiro was. He'd been obsessively rage tweeting about him since then, ever since he learned who he was. There's another one I saw. Look, this is number 5. Look, you guys see how he keep making these tweet threads? Mm-hmm. Not strawmanning his argument. Like, this is what he's saying. I'm going to destroy him. So Ben Shapiro is pretending not to see this, but this motherfucker is in shambles. He is sweating because the man. I seen right wingers are like, yeah, I kind of want to see this shit. I kind of want to see. You know, they into the spectacle as well. So that Norman Finkelstein. One more thing I want to show you guys. What I think is funny. Speaking of Norman Finkelstein. Let me just pull it back up. We all seen what Norman Finkelstein famously did to Alan Dershowitz, who is deeply committed Zionist. I just saw this. This is not even a segment. I just kind of want to get you guys' reaction to it because I saw this earlier today. Where do you guys remember the comments? And we did a segment on this with Obama, where Obama was trying to come out and trying to do a bullshit face turn, like, man, we all complicit. We all complicit. No, we're not complicit.
Right,
You're
right,
complicit.
Right.
And then Israel, and Obama doesn't even condemn Israel. It's literally the most milquetoast style statement. Let me turn this ad off. The most milquetoast style statement you can find. But despite that, Alan Dershowitz calls out Obama deep hatred of Israel. He should be ashamed. He should be ashamed. And he said the Harvard professor says any relationship with Obama is over after his occupation comment. So you guys see how the right wing is now engaging in the same culture war, cancel culture that they used to criticize. It actually isn't Alan Dershowitz like a Democrat? Like, doesn't he like vote Democrat now?
Oh yeah.
No, Russell makes this point a lot, so I'll toss to him by setting this up, that Zionists argue the way Scientologists argue. They will just shout you down.
That's it.
And call you a bad person for not falling lockstep in line 100%. Like, they just don't allow any room for any dissent whatsoever, because what they're espousing is ludicrous, much like the Scientologists.
That's it. Like, they can't. They're actually taught that, Scientologists, that if somebody starts debating you, scream, sir, because I mess with them. They don't come out anymore because I think, we're New Yorkers, man. We don't play that shit. So I think they got so humiliated on the street. I haven't seen them out trying to recruit people anymore. But I used to go up to them. I'd be like, if I saw them trying to hook somebody in, I would go up to the person. I'd be like, yo, man, you see Tom Cruise jumping on that Oprah couch? You ain't got Tom money, man. You want to end up like that? And they'd be like, sir, you can't speak like that. I'm like, hey, man, it's my right to speak. They're the same way for the same reason. As soon as you start to interrogate Scientology, it all falls apart. As soon as you start saying, how can a Jewish state not be an apartheid state anywhere, but particularly in a majority Arab region? Isn't calling it a Jewish state making it an apartheid state automatically? They will try to hide behind, we have Arab citizens. What they're not going to tell you is that small group of Arab citizens are people who managed not to be driven out during the Nakba or their descendants. They were given citizenship. It's a very small group, certainly not enough to in any way really influence Israel policy, obviously. Palestinians are not allowed to get Israeli citizenship, not even through marriage. They cannot even marry into it. They will always hide behind, but we have Arab citizens. Most people don't know what to say to that. Now you do.
Yeah. And CJ, do you mind if I cover the Glenn Tucker segment? 'Cause I think it goes well. And this is the segment that we didn't get a chance to cover yesterday.
I mean, unless we can go all the way till 4:30 because we're already behind.
Yeah.
So we can if we can commit to 4:30, then okay, we could do that.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead. We can continue this one.
I gotta pick up the kids at 4:15, so I gotta leave at 4. But if it's okay if I just skip the last segment.
Oh yeah,
Does that work?
It's up to whatever you guys want to do. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. So like I said, we got a ton to get through. So for the sake of time, we're gonna skip the announcements and play this video. This is Aaron Mate had the luck, or let me describe it as the chance, to sit across from a elected official. And I'll read his tweet before I play the video. It says, Senator Chris Coons sat across from me on the train with Israel using, sat across from me on the train. With Israel using U.S. weapons to kill thousands of Palestinian civilians, including 4,600 plus children, I asked him why he refuses to call for a ceasefire. And this is truly funny because when I first saw this exchange, it wasn't this viral. And I just thought, let me see if anybody's writing about this. And at the time, there was only one article and nothing else. And now there's just an abundance of articles already written about this, all of them describing this situation weird. And we'll get to those headlines first. But let's first start with the video. Here is that video. Is less than 3 minutes. Let me know if you want to stop it, guys.
Senator, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but when I call for a ceasefire in Gaza, I'm a journalist, name's Aaron Mate. When I call for a ceasefire in Gaza, you have 4,600 children killed. 46. I know it's a quiet card. I apologize for abuse, but I understand. But children are dying. Children are dying, sir. More than 40. When I call for a ceasefire, they're being killed with our weapons. U.S. weapons are killing kids in Gaza.
Who are you?
My name is Aaron Mate. I'm a journalist.
Nice to meet you, Aaron.
Likewise.
Please stop talking to me.
I'm sorry, sir. It's of dire importance. More than 11,000 civilians as we're talking being killed. I'm a journalist for the Gray Zone.
What's the Gray Zone?
It's a U.S. based.
You notice he has the ability to answer questions, but just not the questions that is consequential to the United States, because he has a lot of back and forth right here. In particular, go ahead. I think it was Keaton. Somebody wanted to chime in.
No, I was just going to reiterate what you were saying. Yeah, he seems to be talking a lot, just doesn't want to answer the questions.
Now, go ahead.
And Aaron got thrown off the train because of his influence, but we have to break this culture where politicians believe they got privacy.
Exactly.
Do you remember that you're a public servant, sir? Yep. Like these things where they think, "Oh, you're disturbing my dinner." That what Elizabeth Warren just recently said when someone called out for ceasefire. The second that you start making, especially the amount of money that you guys do with taxpayer money, your health care and a pension for life, the whole concept of privacy don't exist for you anymore.
Exactly.
For the public, and if you want peace, you support good policies.
It's not like you get this gig by lottery. You wake up one morning and they come to your door. Sorry, you drew the short straw. You're a senator now.
Right.
You got to break your ass to get this job. You got to win an election. So this is what comes with the gig. That's like when you got celebrities who complain about autographs. Motherfucker, how hard did you work to get in that position? Right. Now you complain and people want your autograph? So you know what? That's a high-quality problem, man. Talk to all the actors who are complaining that nobody wants their autograph. They'd be very happy to trade places with you. This is what comes with the gig. You want to get that sweet insider information trading going on so you can make millions of dollars better than Warren Buffett and then say you didn't get any inside information? Well, once in a while you got to answer questions, sunshine. In the words of Candace Owens, life sucks, get a helmet.
I saw that clip of Candace Owens. That was a pretty good comeback she made on there. But back to Chris Coons again. He's answering
credit where credit is due. What kind of a question is that?
That was a good comeback.
How do you feel that you being here makes me unsafe? I feel like you probably don't get the whole free speech thing. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you need to live somewhere without it.
All right, so back to Chris Coons.
News website.
Good for you.
Thank you. And right now with our support, kids are being killed. I'm sorry. With our weapons, I'm asking you to explain why not call for a ceasefire.
You're bothering me and everyone else around me.
Kids in Gaza are being massacred. I'm asking you to please explain why not call for a ceasefire.
Stop. Sir, could I please have some help here?
Are you not embarrassed?
Can I please have some help?
I'll be too embarrassed to do that, man. Like, anyway, let's continue.
Excuse me, sir. Can you drag this guy off the car?
How cowardice is that? This is a John Fetterman move. Can you help me here and get these people who are calling for me to stop supporting genocide off my back? But this speaks to civility politics. And this was one of the things that I kept seeing in the thread on this. Civility politics. So how does Aaron, or how do we ever get these questions answered if we only can be seen through a proper protocol? We'll never be seen. Go ahead.
I had someone ask me, well, why did you do that with Maddow? You know, because they were saying, well, did you do it to get the attention? I said, well, I wasn't getting any attention when I knocked on doors in Massachusetts for Bernie in 2016.
Right.
This is a natural evolution. They said, how so? I said, back then I still thought that democracy was real. This is what you do when you don't believe in it anymore. Now you need to disrupt. Once you have figured out that the system doesn't work and that it's designed not to work according to what they're telling you it is. Well, now if you still care enough to be politically active, if you're not going to throw up your hands and give up, well, okay. The knocking on doors. Excuse me, can you please vote for somebody who wants to give us health care, ma'am? And you know it's all a lot of, but you're not going to do that anymore. Now you're going to be going up and clandestine and hanging out with Jose and being like, all right, man, let's fucking, you go first, I'll go next. That's the natural evolution of your politics once you figure out that the channels you've been told to use to change things don't work.
Facts. All right, back to Chris. Almost done here because this is the first time he's asking for it. This is about a third of the way through the video. So about a third of the way through the video, he's asking for help. And he seems so fragile. Listen to his voice. It's almost cracking like a 12-year-old boy's voice crack as it changes.
And I call for a ceasefire.
Stop. Sir, could I please have some help here?
Kids are being killed with our weapons.
Stop. I'm asking you to stop.
Why not stop?
This is not an appropriate place for you to interview me. You're bothering everybody else around.
It's a crisis
How
right
did you
now.
get this seat?
I bought the seat.
Look at that classist question.
He's
How do you get this seat? How do you get this seat?
I wish someone else on the train would have been like, he's not bothering me.
I'm perfectly okay with this.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly
Or
okay
if somebody said, you know what? You're my senator or whatever. I would like that question answered too. Why don't you call for a ceasefire? That would have been base. But let's listen as Aaron moves on.
Our government is paying for weapons that are murdering children. Guys, I'm asking him why I call for a ceasefire.
Aaron,
can you explain that?
please stop.
Can I ask you to explain why I call for a ceasefire?
You've already asked me 5 times. I'm not going
why
to
won't
call
you
for a
explain?
ceasefire. I strongly support humanitarian causes. I've urged the Israeli government to target their campaign against Hamas. But you need
Do you think
to
the
stop.
campaign is targeting against Hamas when
Aaron,
civilians are being massacred, when babies and incubators are dying because the
Please
fuel's
stop,
being cut
or I'm
off?
going to have you thrown off this train. Please stop doing this.
I have to
You've
ask these
asked me
questions.
10 times.
I know, and I
You're
will keep.
getting as professional, measured, and appropriate an answer out of me as you can. This is not professional journalism. Please get up and leave.
What does that mean? This is not professional journalism. So journalism has to be done a certain way in order for the ruling class to be, oh, that's journalism. if the journalism includes calling them out for supporting genocide, that's not journalism.
Right.
Apparently.
Journalism is you email my office and I have my staffer write you back a bullshit answer and you print that. That's journalism.
Yeah. I sit down with an access journalist who's in the pocket of the people that I work for, who's never going to ask me a question like this.
Just shocking, but let's continue.
I don't think it's humane to be massacring kids. That's the problem here.
That's
I
right.
realize I'm not
I don't
being
think it's
precise enough.
humane to be massacring kids either.
Okay, then
You notice he keeps fidgeting? You notice he keeps fidgeting? I'm going to rewind it just a second. You notice this entire time he's fidgeting with his hands. That is not the demeanor of a person who believes they're in the righteous position. You're not going to be moving. You're going to be like, damn right. Israel is fighting a war against evil. You get what I'm saying? Like, if that's what you really believe and not just a line. Go ahead, Nick.
That's very true, and that's definitely the most intelligent breakdown of this. But he also a beta cuck. Like, these people are also...
Nick is saying it's simpler than that, Jay. It's simpler than that. It's simpler than
that you had the right analysis, but there's also another layer to this. These people and politicians, as I mentioned before, they are just people. Washington is Hollywood for ugly people. They are they benefit from privilege and protection their entire life. This guy went to a private school. He had mentorship. He had a very guided path to where he is right now. Are these people used to conflict? No, they're not used. Me and CJ, you know how many times me, CJ, and Ron, we got in conflict on RBN about the direction of the channel? Like, it's something that we're used to. Like, we had conflict, we argue about stuff, and then we make up like brothers because we know we love each other. People like Chris Kroon in the professional managerial class, they are legitimately uncomfortable with any kind of conflict like this. They used to passive aggressive shit. They do that to their own family, to their neighbor. They don't address their neighbor. They gossip behind their back. Like, that's a well-known culture among the suburban families in this class. So when you have someone like Aaron Mate, who I'm sure that Aaron nervous too, because Aaron a very mild guy.
Yeah, he is.
I'm sure that Aaron didn't want to do this. You know what I mean? He had a duty though. So Aaron suck it up, and he's like, I'm gonna have this uncomfortable confrontation. But this beta cuck, like that was Sarah, this beta cuck is generally uncomfortable with it. That what not only is he intellectually dishonest, like you said, CJ, but I think they're just literally just that. Oh, I'm not used to engaging with people questioning me like that. They're so protected. So anyway, let's continue.
But that is so this is so what our government, we supposed to interact with our government. We're supposed to sneak on and break through barriers to get to them, to talk to them. Journalists are supposed to do these things. How else are journalists supposed to report on items unless it's in the way that they're normally accustomed, where the paid journalists, the paid propagandists just come in, hey guys, we have a lunch or a dinner, and smooths with each other, and then say, make sure you deliver in these talking points that comes exclusively from the State Department. But again, just watch as he's moving throughout the video. There's only about 40 seconds left. 50 seconds left, so let's listen.
Humane to be massacring kids. That's the problem here.
That's
I realize I'm not
I don't
being
think it's
precise enough.
humane to be massacring kids either.
Okay, then
and
why
I
are we
think when
supporting it?
Hamas massacred 1,400 Israeli civilians, the whole world should unite in opposition to terrorism.
First of all, the number is 1,200. It wasn't entirely
Are we going to
civilians.
quibble over how many civilians were massacred by Hamas?
It's important to be
Quibble. The fact that they reported a higher number and that wasn't true, he calls that quibbling over the
On out a lie. It's quibbling.
Oh goodness, it is amazing. It is amazing. But let's let it finish out so we can move on.
Precise.
It is important to be precise.
But yes, civilians were massacred.
I'm a senator.
So I give us
this
the right
is
to
a quiet car. You're breaking the basic rules of how we operate on Amtrak.
Okay.
You see how he got out his talking point. You see how after he got out his talking
we
points,
respect the quiet cars.
You see how after he got out his talking points, he went back to a process argument. I'm going to come back to that, but I do want to play show the quiet car policy, because a journalist with enough sense, more sense than me, went and got the quiet car policy.
Oh, really?
Right here. Yes, Dave DeCamp. There we go. Dave DeCamp. Everybody knows Dave DeCamp over at antiwar.com. And this is what he says. After reviewing the tape and the Amtrak quiet car rules, I have determined Aaron did not violate anything. He spoke softly in a subdued tone. The only thing he's guilty of is making a senator squirm due to his support for the mass killing of Palestinian children. And here is the quiet car breakdown, or I guess policy, and I'll read it in its entirety. Need a quiet space to work or unwind. Or if you're a politician, need a place where you cannot be bothered by peasants. I added that second part there.
Yes.
But quiet cars are available on many corridors. Oh, and short distance trains. Guests are asked to limit conversation and speak in subdued tones. Phone calls are not allowed, and all portable electronic devices must be muted or used with headphones. In parentheses, passengers using headphones must keep the volume low enough so that the audio can not be heard by other passengers. Low overhead lighting creates a restful atmosphere for all passengers, but reading lights are available. Now, would any of you say he wasn't subdued in his tone? Would any of you describe that, or how would you describe it?
No, I think he was pretty quiet, but these quiet car people are the biggest Karens on earth. I know. I've never been on an Amtrak in my life, actually, but the Metro North that goes in and out of New York City has quiet cars. And one time I got on a train, and the train was almost full, so I had to sit in the quiet car because it's the only place where there were seats. And I got a phone call. And it was kind of an important call. And so, like, I'm taking this call. So I start talking as quiet as I can. And it's shy, it's quiet, it's a quiet car. It's a quiet car. You can't be in a quiet car. Like, 10 of them start yelling at me. So I get up. I finally get up, and I just leave. I take my bag. I walk out. I'll go sit on the floor or something, or I'll try and find an open seat. Because I couldn't talk on the phone. They were shouting me down. And I was so pissed off on my way out. I said, enjoy your nap. But no, they take it serious, the quiet cars.
Oh God, probably like the people at the damn library. But let's continue right here. Oh, I guess it's buffering, but actually, let's go to this one here. Same video, but hopefully it doesn't buffer. We still need to listen to the last 50 seconds of the video. I did want to show you the quiet car part, but now let's get back to the video, and I'll cue it back up where we were. Right about here. Man, they must know we're trying to play this video. That's really weird that two videos is not... Yeah, that two videos is not playing. Let me try a third video, a third time, and see if it plays now. This is really weird. Okay, it looks like this one is playing.
Senator, I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Now I'll go ahead and fast forward to our spot here. There we go.
There we go.
Please stop doing this.
I have to ask these
You've
questions.
asked me 10 times.
I know, and I
You're
will keep...
getting as professional, measured, appropriate an answer out of me as you can. This is not professional journalism. Please get up and leave.
I don't think it's humane to be massacring kids. That's the problem here.
That's
I
great.
realize I'm not
I don't
being
think it's
professional.
humane to be massacring kids either.
Okay, then
And
why
I
are we
think when
supporting
Hamas massacred 1,400 Israeli civilians, the whole world should unite in opposition to terrorism.
First of all, the number is 1,200. It wasn't
Are
entirely
we going to
civilians. but
quibble over
regard-
how many civilians were
it's
massacred by
important,
Hamas?
it's important to be precise. It's important,
It is important to be precise.
But yes, civilians were massacred.
I'm a senator.
Does that give us
This
the right
is
to
a
kill?
quiet car. You're breaking the basic rules of how we operate on Amtrak.
Okay, and the question
Please
is,
stop.
and I believe we're breaking international law
Okay.
by supporting
Thanks for
massacres
your
of civilians.
opinion.
Yes.
You've had a lot of my time. Please move on.
Why not at least call for a ceasefire?
On how long do you have? A minute? You spoke to him
Wow.
for a
Yeah,
minute?
he has another video. I'll play that where he kind of explains what happened. Here it goes right here. So let's play this other video from Aaron.
from an Amtrak train going to Washington, D.C. after I questioned Democratic Senator Chris Coons about his support for the Israeli mass murder campaign in Gaza and his refusal to call for a ceasefire. After I questioned him, he left his seat, then he came back, and then he asked that I be removed. And so a Amtrak staffer came over and told me to change seats or else I'd be thrown off the train. And in Senator Coons' defense, this was the quiet car. And so I did violate the norms of the quiet car by questioning him about his stance. But I felt this was important because we're talking about a massacre in Gaza. And I felt okay violating the norms of the quiet car, given that I believe we're violating international law by supporting the murder of so many innocents inside Gaza. So after he made that request, I did move my seat. I complied and I sat somewhere.
So in whose world does quiet car rules supersede international law? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, quiet car rules supersede, so we should not talk about the ongoing genocide. But go ahead, Keaton, it looks like you were going to...
Chris Coons is a Democrat, which means I think you guys over at RBN have a new phrase to add to your index, the quiet car left, right? I mean, it's right there.
There we go. There we go. All right, let's let Aaron finish out his explanation, and then we'll give final thoughts.
Somewhere else. And the train continued along. But then a while later, he walked by me. We did not exchange words. I was respecting the sanctity of the quiet car and his request that I no longer question him. But shortly after that, the train stopped in Philadelphia, and all of a sudden I was taken off the train by police and told that I had been thrown off by the conductor. I'm assuming at the request of Senator Coons. So Senator Coons, if it makes you feel better to have me removed from a train because I bothered you, I understand it's not pleasant to be questioned, especially not to be questioned about supporting the mass murder of civilians. But what I hope you will still address is why you are supporting this mass murder, why you won't call for a ceasefire along with some of your Democratic colleagues who are in the House. And I don't regret at all questioning you about that, even though it was in the quiet car, because right now, as inconvenienced as you were by my questions, there are over 2 million people in Gaza who are being massacred and displaced. And given that this is being done with U.S. weaponry, their rights need to be addressed. And these questions need to be answered.
Man, I gotta say, man, Aaron is a class guy. Like, he is truly a class sort of guy. He will react way better than I reacted in some of these instances. And
they'd have had a very hard
go
time
ahead.
getting me off that train. They had a very hard time getting me off that train. Because I think, I'm not 100% sure, I've been trying to confirm this now, but wasn't he on his way to do the Tim Pool show? Because I think he was on Tim Pool last night, because he tweets out.
He was.
Yeah, he tweets out, they threw me off the train, but I still made it on time. That's the thing, man. You throw someone off an Amtrak train, you really fucking them up, because like those trains are not going 50 miles. I mean, the guy was going, I'm assuming he was going to Tim Pool's studio, right? So he was on his way to West Virginia from, I assume, New York. I think that's where he lives. So it makes sense. Delaware, DC, that was probably the route that Coons was on. But yeah, I mean, that's a huge step to throw someone off an Amtrak train. That's like landing an airplane in the middle of a country and forcing a guy to get out. You know what I mean? You just like strand them in the middle of nowhere over what? Like, he left, he complied eventually, but no. And it was definitely Coons who had him thrown off the train. He says, I suspect it was at the behest of Coons. In his own video, Chris Coons says, I'll have you thrown off the train. He threatens to have him thrown off the train.
I think after he looked up Aaron Mate and looked up in particular Gray Zone, I think it was, oh yeah, we got to get this guy off. But there's a lot of headlines.
That could be too, because he wasn't thrown off right away. It's a good point.
Exactly. Because he said after the second train, I think he said is where he was.
Yeah, it took him a while to get him off. Right.
But I do want to show this headline, and there's many headlines like this that's basically saying he was badgered. I mean, Senator Coons badgered about Gaza strike and ceasefire on Amtrak. And I'll just read a snippet. I'm not going to read the whole article. I'll read the snippet that I cut out here. and it goes. It says, in a video posted on Monday on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Now, get this: they say his name wrong once in the article. They do correct it later in the article. Says Andrew Mate, even though his name is Aaron, who works for the controversial
Controversial
news site.
anti-ethnic cleansing rag called the Gray Zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Called the Gray Zone, asked Coons nearly a dozen times why he would not call for ceasefire, as Coons repeatedly told him to please stop talking to me. Why don't you say, this also could be read this way, Coons repeatedly didn't answer the question, instead of he asked the question 10 times, but you don't say that he didn't answer the question 10 times. I do want to show this one, play this about 45 seconds of this, because as usual, Caitlin Johnstone does a great job of analysis on this. We're not going to listen to the whole 7.5 minutes, but the first 2 minutes is pretty spot on. I'm curious to your guys' reaction. And this is what we'll use to close and then get to the main topic, which is the third party stuff. And then I'll pass it to you, Nick, for any stories. But here is 2 minutes of what Caitlin Johnstone wrote about, because this is just the audio version of it, wrote about this, and we're listening to the audio version of this.
Tone policing opposition to genocide. U.S. Senator Chris Coons sat across from journalist Aaron Mate on the train on Monday, which is about the worst place you could possibly choose to sit if you're a powerful official in a government that's in the middle of backing an active genocide. As any journalist of sound conscience would, Mate seized the opportunity to begin questioning Coons on camera about his support for Israel's ongoing massacre of civilians in Gaza, and to ask him why he isn't supporting a ceasefire. Coons immediately became indignant that Mate was questioning him. He avoided addressing the questions he was being asked for a long time, responding only to repeatedly demand that Mate cease talking to him and to ask him who he is and how he got a seat on the train. "This is a quiet car," Coons admonished. "I understand, but children are dying, sir," Mate replied. "They're being killed with our weapons. U.S. weapons are killing kids in Gaza." "Please stop," Coons kept repeating, ignoring the irony that "please stop" is all anyone is asking of the U.S.-backed human butchery that is taking place in Gaza. As British rapper and activist Low-Key noted on Twitter, Coons has received over $250,000 from pro-Israel lobbying groups over the years.
$250,000. Now, as we're living in a democracy, I ask all of us, and if you guys can answer if you want, but it's kind of a rhetorical question. Are we really to believe a person who's taking $250,000 from a particular group is going to do anything but support that group, including genocide? Is that what we're supposed to believe? And then my second question is, what happens, fellas, if a person takes lobby money, because he's already received it, and then he decides to make a flip? What would happen to Chris Coons if he decided to go against the people who gave him $250,000 over the last several years? What would happen to him? That's a genuine question I would ask. That, okay, you took money from this lobby group, not before all of this stuff happened, but now you see what's happening, and you have the ability to pivot. So I'm always wondering what would happen to those people if they did that. But go ahead.
Well, you leave work, you're having a drink, you wake up next to a dead hooker, bunch of journalists outside the motel room door. And that's how the Mossad handles those things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
one
it's
of those
tough to
quiet
say.
heart attacks. Silent killer, as they say.
It's really tough to say because, at a certain point when you've been an incumbent for so long, you would think they'd have the support to withstand the challenge if they crossed AIPAC or if they crossed one of these various Israeli lobbying groups. But they don't do it. I guess that's the mob ethics, right? You don't bite the hand that feeds you. But it's just abhorrent. I mean, obviously we know the number there, $250,000. Richie Torres, same thing, $141,000. Hakeem Jeffries, 6-figure donations from the Israel lobby. And because they get those contributions, they just parrot the party line. It's just, I don't understand the kind of person that can do that. Nick, you tweeted out a while back, how frustrated you were, rightfully so, and how desperate it feels to just be in a situation when this horror is unfolding that all we could do is rage tweet, right? I don't, you probably remember firing off that tweet, and you're like, it's so frustrating that all we could do here is express our outrage on Twitter, or we're fortunate enough to have YouTube channels where we reach people, but like that's all we can do. What if we were in a position to help stop this? Well, these fucking pieces of garbage like Chris Coons, Hakeem Jeffries, Richie Torres, they are in a position to do it. How could you not do it? It doesn't even, it's so foreign to me that if I were in a position where I could stop this, I wouldn't stop it. Like, they're just not wired the same. They're just pieces of shit at the end of the day, is the only explanation I could think of.
Well, they screen out anyone who's not a piece of shit.
Right. Well, yes, exactly. That's the explanation. You're right.
I mean, we've seen what happened. I mean, none of the people, I would say, and I think we'd all agree, that the left tried to get into office back when we were trying to work the Goldwater tactic of building from the bottom up and taking over until we eventually get our Reagan and turn it all around. When we were still on board with that project, like the Squad project, there's nobody that we were putting forward that was truly radical. None of them. They were in Europe. They'd all be centrists.
Right.
Anyone that Bernie, the Squad, they'd all be centrists in Europe. So it's not like people we were backing were radical Maoists. We were backing these just very conventional social democrats, just asking for basic protections that everyone else in the industrialized West has. Every other population has, and in many places outside of the industrialized West, they have, such as healthcare. And they wouldn't let that shit fly. Once they saw they could actually lose to people like that, that was it. Once they figured that out, the Ninas, when they would run, Nina's no radical. He's not a radical. They did everything to make sure Nina Turner did not get into office. So who are you going to end up with? The quiet card guy.
Right on. All right, so let's. I'm going to play another 30 seconds, and then we'll get to the third party stuff. That segment is a lot shorter. I just kind of want to go through the candidates and get everybody's opinion, because this is the era of the third party, and I took that from Nick. That's up next, but let's listen to a little more of Caitlin Johnstone's wonderful breakdown and analysis, and she always does it with humor, which is why we always love Caitlin Johnstone.
Over and over and over again, Coons tried to make the exchange about how Mate is being inappropriate and unprofessional and speaking the wrong way in the wrong venue, instead of the fact that the U.S. government is directly funding and supplying a genocidal massacre that has killed thousands of children and displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When all of this is over, most of us will have regrets that we didn't do more. But Aaron Mate won't be among them. I recommend watching the clip of the exchange if you haven't seen it yet, because it's such a perfect illustration of the way opposition to Israel's Gaza massacre is being aggressively tone-policed by those who support it. Ever since the mass slaughter of Gazans began last month, there's been a freakish trend of working to shut down opposition to this atrocity by attacking the way people are opposing it, rather than attempting to address their concerns.
And I wanted to play it up until that part because there is another story we'll get to later, and it speaks to what Kathy Holcomb is doing in New York to survey Palestinian protesters on college campuses and etc. They are doing exactly what Caitlin Johnstone alluded to in that video, in that article. that she did. But any final comments, Nick or Keaton, on this segment, and then we'll do the third party, and then I'll pass it to you, Nick. Any other segments?
Last thing probably gotta be my last one. I gotta head out around 2 or so, but I can stay for another segment. So
okay.
I stay for one. Oh
okay,
yeah, by the way, announcement we have, if I don't know if you want to join or you can take a day off if you want, CJ, but we have Wyatt Reed join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, so I will go through some of my stories then. So I can stay for the last story, but tomorrow we got a good show with Wyatt Reed. So
right on. Any last words, Keaton or Russell?
No, I think we're wrapped on that one. I am, at least.
Yeah. All right. So
that one's in the can, as they say. Printed.
Let's get to another story then, and let's bring this up here. This next story is the thumbnail story, and let's start here, and I'm going to start with this headline because start with this headline here. Let me bring up the right title. So now Nick said this, and I think it was last week, Nick, or maybe it was earlier this week, that Nick put out a tweet where the gist of that, this is not verbatim. I don't know if you have it saved, but this is the era of the third party. Not to say that this is the first time we've had, 4 independent or third party or non-duopoly presidential candidates. That's quite to the contrary. I think there's always lots of people running for president. We just don't hear about them. But to Nick's point in the tweet, the reason it feels like this is different, gentlemen, is that these are more high-profile names that are running for third party, with RFK, for example, with Jill Stein, with Cornel West, even Cenk Uygur, he's running as a Democrat. But and then Claudia De La Cruz, maybe doesn't have much as a name recognition, but definitely 3 of the 4 that I just mentioned have a higher name recognition, and which
I don't know if you see the comment.
I see that.
Screen,
I see that. Yeah.
RFK is running under the Lucky Party. That's a good one.
Yeah. And I just read a little bit of this. The headline says, high-profile third-party candidates crowd into U.S. presidential field. I'm going to read this snippet, and then there's another article that breaks down each candidate, and that's the one I want to really bring to you. But this article does talk about something that I want to bring light to, and that's this part here. University of Virginia Center for Politics said that third-party candidates could significantly disrupt the 2024 presidential election. Quote, the conditions are ripe for third-party candidates to get a bigger share of the vote than they typically do. I don't know who that guy is, but Dyke wrote, quote, if Biden and Trump are nominated, both have weak favorability numbers, meaning a significant slice of the electorate will hold an unfavorable view of both candidates. And he goes on to say, this is what happened in 2016 when third-party candidates got 6% of the vote. Third-party candidates very often poll better than they perform, but they still collectively should get some level of combined support. More so than in a typical presidential year, there are multiple third-party candidates with relatively high levels of name recognition who can appeal to the range of demographics. And then this last part here, and I'll pass it to one of you. It sounds like one of you might want to chime in. There also will likely be a lot of different third-party candidates, all potentially appealing to different kinds of voters. RFK Jr. for the conspiracy-minded, Jill Stein
for the Zionist-minded,
Jill Stein and Cornel West for the left, for the far left, and for libertarians, some conservatives. and a no labels candidate for moderates. Russell or whoever wanted to chime in.
I'd
Go
say
ahead.
this, and I'll pass it to do this then. The reason why I say this is we are entering an era of the third parties. I'm looking at the numbers. This is the first time we've seen the first time since Morning Consult with tracking that 50% of registered voters are independent. Now look at who's running. We have Biden and Trump, but obviously that's like a horrible nightmare scenario. But does it get better from here? Think about it. Does it get better from here? So after Biden's gone, who's next? Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom. And then look at the right. Who's next on the right? Josh Hawley, Ron DeSantis. So it's not just Biden, Trump, nigga. This burnout of the duopoly is just starting. And this era is different compared to other eras because who was third-party candidates before? Billionaires. Because billionaires were the only people who could legitimately run third party. Now, why are already people comfortable with running third party now? Because the internet era, in the era where most people don't get their news from corporate media, where people can go on podcasts. You can go on the number one podcast in America. You can go on a big right-wing podcast. You can go on Jimmy Dore. You can go on all these podcasts. Now, in this era, which is unique than any other era before, you have a way to bypass the media blackout. And third parties was learning and dealing with this over the last few years. But now when you see the big names like RFK, Dr. Cornel West, and all these people that avoiding the blackout, this is why I have my original premise, CJ. All these factors where you can now have non-billionaire third-party candidates, the fact that Biden and Trump is hated by the country and the next generation of leaders is probably going to be worse. Like imagine the third-party drive if it's Kamala Harris versus my senator, Josh Hawley. Ron DeSantis versus Pete Buttigieg. I think it would
Lord.
Anything you want to add? I'll pass to you guys.
Well, no, I mean, look, I think you're right that there's an element of like looking into the future and seeing that, you know, it only gets worse for the two major parties from here. But I think that just the choice of having two presidents on the ballot, one current president and one ex-president, makes the third party case a lot easier to make because there is no new option that either of the two major parties are offering. You know, the Democrats are offering Biden and then the Republicans are offering Trump, who already was the president. So that makes the third party's case so easy to make. They literally just say, we've literally elected both of these two guys before and they've both failed.
Yeah.
Right. So you know what you're getting with both of these guys. There's no way they can sell you on something and you're taking a chance that maybe they'll deliver. No, you already know what both of these candidates represent. Now, because Biden has been so terrible, you see a lot of people answering pollsters by stunning margins, saying they were much better off when Trump was in the White House and so they want him back. Now, that ignores a lot of factors, right? But it doesn't change the reality in voters' minds. That they have buyer's remorse over Biden, and on that point, I do not blame Biden voters for having buyer's remorse over Biden. So, for people who don't want to go back to Trump, yeah, that makes this very, very fruitful ground for third parties. RFK is polling very, very well. You know, I don't know why Jill Stein and Cornel West are splitting the Green socialist vote. That just seems to show how disorganized they are, which is not a surprise to us who have been following this closely for the past few months. But between RFK, Jill Stein, the PSL party, you have Claudia De La Cruz, and I forget who her running mate's name is, Cornel. Then you might have no labels. Manchin is not running for Senate. He's saying, I'm going to explore the country. I'm going to go around the country seeing if there's momentum in the middle. That means he is considering a no labels run. So that will be number 7. And then the Libertarians are going to run somebody. That would be 8. That's a lot of candidates. With at least, you know, decent name ID. PSL parties, you know, smaller name ID, but between Cornel, RFK, Jill Stein, Joe Manchin, whoever the Libertarians pick, you're gonna have a lot of candidates in the race. Now it also is a question of who's going to be on the ballot. Not really.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
Right. Because RFK should be able to buy his way onto a decent amount since he's, you know, He's comes from a royal family here in America, and he probably is surrounded by people with money to build the teams to make it happen.
He's got a lot of tech billionaire backing.
Exactly. The Greens will be on the ballot because they have that infrastructure. The Libertarians will be on the ballot. Whether Claudia and Cornell can get on ballots, that's an open question.
Yeah, and to that point, and I said this in another stream earlier. Was it this week or last week? Is that the independent party of RFK and the independent party of Cornel West are not the same. They're not the same at all because right. So Cornel West polling at 8% means nothing because 8% of 0 is what? 0.
Yeah.
But RFK Jr. is in a different. He has the ability to run a different campaign because just like you always point out, Keaton. What is it for Texas and California alone to get on those ballots? What 300 over a quarter of a
combined
million?
330. No, it's well over a quarter million. It's 332,000 between those two states, which really means 500,000.
Right,
they're
which
going to
really
invalidate
means
a
you
lot
got to
of
get
signatures.
more, right? Because you got to get more. So a 500,000 votes, but the independent campaign of RFK, especially, and you see how he's standing lock and step with the Israel lobby. He has the ability to raise money to pay people to get those signatures where the Cornel West campaign does not. So essentially, the RFK campaign has the ability to far outraise money as an independent campaign than Cornel West.
Absolutely, and that's why the gaslighting of Peter Dow and Jill Stein is so outrageous. Like the idea, I mean, for Dow to say, well, I left the Cornel West campaign in better shape than when I got there. I mean, it's just fucking absurd. The guy had ballot access in the two biggest states. He had ballot access in 17 states, including the two biggest states in the country. California and Texas were a done deal for the Green Party. Now you're going to need 500,000 signatures just for those two states alone. Where are you going to get them? How are you going to get them? What staff do you have? You have nothing. You have nothing. I would be shocked out of my mind if they get ballot access in one of those two states, much less both, much less the 48 others.
I read a story not too long ago, and I'll pass it right to you, Russell. I read a story not too long ago. It wasn't worth doing a segment over, but it was discussing how Republicans and Democrats are kind of teaming up to try and get as many third party
they always do that.
Off the ballot as possible. So I want you guys to understand it's going to be hard for the Green Party with their organization to get on the ballot now because they're a coordinated effort to kick them off. Let alone someone like Dr. West. Imagine what they're going to do with Dr. West. You got this celebrity. They're going to do everything they can legality to kick him off the ballot. He has a really hard road ahead of him. But I think Russell wanted to go next. I'll pass to you guys.
Well, with Cornel West, I'm gonna apply one of my favorite quotes that people have heard before from von Clausewitz. There are no contradictions. When you think you found a contradiction, check your premises. Here's a brilliant man running for president who has done everything possible to make sure that he doesn't get any votes. I don't see that as a contradiction unless your premise is that he's really running for president. I don't buy it. I think he wanted to go out there. I think he wanted to platform some issues. I think he wanted to talk to some podcasters. And once it became clear he was going to lose his cushy sinecure as the CNN's pet radical, he did everything he could to sabotage his own campaign to make sure that he could still save face by saying, I'm running for president without actually being any threat to anyone who's going to get it. Notice how they stopped talking about him? Notice how they stopped talking? They were talking, what's he doing? Now because now he backed off. So that's just a joke. He likes to talk to podcasters. And not even that anymore because now he knows he's going to get asked questions he can't answer. RFK, I mean, it goes without saying. This freaking, it's 1965 called, they want their foreign policy back. Right. And Jill Stein, I mean, nobody has anything negative to say about. I mean, I don't have anything negative to say about her. But one of the worst things to happen to the Green Party was Cornel West, because now we all got to look at the Green Party and how it runs and how it operates, and it's a clown car, man. It's like, yeah, okay, you have some ballot access. What's that worth? What's that really worth if your party runs in such a just completely slipshod manner? Like, how can it really be a vehicle to be built into something else? Which I think when Cornell was running, a lot of us looked at that and said, Well, who cares? Cornell is just going to swamp the pre-existing Green Party with a new Green Party. But now you don't have that possibility. So what are we talking about here? Come on.
And they're also not being honest about how the Cornell thing fell apart. Because I tweeted at Peter Dow, and we went back and forth a few times. I could share it on the screen if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if you're able to share, sure.
Yeah, I have it. Yeah, I think I can share it. I think you granted me that access last time. Hold on one second. Beautiful. Okay. All right. So I replied to a thread that because he and Jimmy were going back and forth, and so I replied here: if Jill and Cornell are serious, why are they running against each other and splitting the already minuscule Green Socialist vote, as opposed to figuring out how to consolidate that support, which would have meant making it work with Cornell on the Green ticket? So he responded. He tells me, did you see Jill Stein yesterday suggesting they run as a joint ticket? How do you know how this all plays out? Now, I did not see Jill Stein suggesting they run as a joint ticket. So then I said, wait a minute. So now you want Cornell back to be what? Vice president for Jill Stein on the Green Party after leaving the party already? It'd be nice if someone could just be honest and forthright about why and how he left in the first place. No answer. So a few minutes later, I said, are you going to answer that or not? Because you ask how I know how things will play out, but no one's being honest about why Cornell quit the Greens in the first place. In other words, don't tell us, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, you guys haven't told us anything, right? He quits the Greens, and no one wants to say exactly why. Cornell says there was internal strife, there was bureaucratic processes, right? But no one will actually say why. So then he got back to me on that. He said he gave a lengthy interview to Sabby. I'm sure you can find it. I said, yeah, I saw it. I said he cited internal strife and a laborious bureaucratic process. That's not an explanation. How are we supposed to glean from that whether he's welcome back in the party? Because now Peter's saying, well, they want to join up again, right? Was the strife that he cited over irreconcilable policy disagreements, campaign tactics, ballot access priorities? You can't be this evasive and then complain that some of us suspect foul play, and you can't blame us for not knowing what's going on. You guys do not answer. They are very, very evasive on this question, and he has not answered, right? So nobody has actually given an explanation for exactly why and how that relationship between Cornell and the Greens fell apart. If we don't know that, how do we know whether they're going to join forces again? And they're not going to. If they were going to join forces, then they just burned another 2 months where they could have been joining forces. Like, it doesn't. It's absurd. It's absurd. They're dicking us around, and this is something I had never thought of this from this perspective until I heard you guys interview Marianne. And Nick told Marianne, look, the working class already burned $100 million on Bernie. We don't have time and money to waste with people who are going to fuck with us. And that's what they're doing. They're fucking with us, because until I heard that interview, I had never thought of it from that point of view. Until I heard that interview, I would probably just think, well, they're probably, this is probably a waste of time, but what do we have to lose? But what Nick said to Marianne was absolutely right. We have a lot to lose. Time and resources are not infinite for working people and working class movements. And so who's going to get invested in this? They're dicking us around. It's ridiculous. Like, you have to prove a level of seriousness if you want people to invest in you. You don't have to prove you can win. We're not unreasonable people. I'm not saying Jill Stein has to be in a position to win. You have to be in a position to demonstrate that you are serious about maximizing your impact. If you cannot do that, then you have no business asking people to get invested in your campaign. And at this point, neither Jill Stein nor Cornel West have passed that test, not even close.
True that. And now let's just look at a couple of the candidates as a whole. Now, we all, like all of us, we are in this every day, so can probably recite this, the candidates that are in, or most of them. But who's running for president here? And AP actually does a breakdown. We're not going to go through the Republicans or Democrats. I do want to go through we're not going to read the details. I'll just kind of skim through them real quick. Of course, we all know Donald Trump. Let me make this a little bit smaller here. Of course, we all know Donald Trump, and we all know Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis. So let's scroll through all of the regular people that they have. For the Democrats, we have Joe Biden. And the reason I want to just scroll through the Republicans and Democrats, because we already know who they want to have win. That's Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I feel so bad for Marianne Williamson that nobody's talking about her. I feel so bad about her now that she heard her name.
She's so hurt.
Yeah, she is hurt. Because we're talking about people in the general, and you're not going to be in the general, Marianne. So that's the reason why nobody's talking about you, Dean Phillips. So that's the Democrats. So now let's get to the independents. Of course, there's Robert F. Kennedy, and on why I wanted to kind of just read this, because I wanted you guys to hear how the AP describes him. The best-selling author and environmental lawyer announced on October 9th that he would be ending Democratic bid and instead launching an independent party. And then they, of course, describe him and everything. But here's the part, another description they always have to include, and Nick made this point, the vaccination part. Even though he's not leading with that, they have to keep that in there. And that's Kennedy has emerged as one of the leading voices of the anti-vaccination movement, with public health experts and even members of his own family describing his work as misleading and dangerous. He has also been linked to far-right figures in recent years. Now, when you go and read this, Nick, Keaton, and Russell, do you understand they don't have these little snippet descriptions for any of the corporate people?
Oh, of course.
You don't have like a little bad paragraph. Here's
Right,
the bad
little
part
warnings.
of this can't. They don't have that.
Be advised, Joe Biden has started 2 world wars at the same time.
Yeah.
They do not do that.
Joe Biden, the notorious collaborator with segregationists who
Right.
authored mass incarceration,
Who's been
is
known
running
to
for
start
president.
world wars from time to time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we know the different candidates that are running. Before I get back to read Cornell's, we know the different candidates that are running, and I do want to, as a close to this segment, I do want to go around the table and just kind of briefly hear what everybody thinks of the 4 independent candidates. And let me bring up the graphic again. Quick here. So we're talking about Cornel West, we're talking about Claudia De La Cruz, we're talking about Dr. Jill Stein, and we're talking about RFK Jr. And I'll set the example, and then I'll go around the room. So I don't know, maybe if you're living in New York, and I think one of you might be living in New York or nearby, but living in California, I'm going to have all of these people on my ballot. And for me, it's not necessarily a specific person I need to register my vote with, as long as it's outside of the duopoly. Because I understand any person I'm voting for outside of the duopoly is not winning. That is not the strategy. The strategy is this vote by vote, remove voters from the duopoly. So
Right.
for me, Jill Stein, Claudia De La Cruz, or Cornel West is like, it's registering my vote outside of the duopoly. But I am leaning towards Claudia De La Cruz. She's the one that's saying end capitalism on her platform. So I do love that about her. But I am second guessing or second thinking because Dr. Jill Stein has entered the race. Cornel West and RFK Jr. are just not options for me. Like, I don't consider them options for me to vote. One, because RFK and his stance on Israel and many other things. And then just 2, Cornel West, like Russell said, is not running a real campaign. He's not really trying to be, he's not even really, in my estimation, really trying to build a movement. I don't see that that's what he's trying to do. Now, after seeing some of the interaction of Jimmy Dore and a lot of other people over Jill Stein re-entering the race, I am curious to hear some of your opinions about her re-entering this race, considering who is she going to hire as a campaign manager? Is it going to be Peter Dahl? Because she said that was the only one that's available.
He seems to
Or
be
is she gonna
pushing
get
for it,
somebody
man.
else?
He's tweeted at her several times. He's just like he tweeted praise for Cornel West before Cornell hired him. He's been tweeting out praise for her. It would just be hilarious if she ends up hiring
You
him.
want to know what's weird? You know how Peter Dow say he quit the Dr. Cornel West campaign for mental health breaks?
Mhm.
This
And
is
he
one
won't
hell
shut
of
the
a
fuck up.
He's just fighting everyone on the timeline. This is one hell of a mental health break.
Yeah, no, that's what his doctor said. His doctor said, "Go bitch at Jimmy Dore on Twitter."
Yeah,
that's
but let's
good
go
for
to Nick.
relaxation. Get in a bathtub with
Nick.
some lavender and Epsom salt in your phone and just start rage tweeting.
I used to use Epsom salt all the time when I used to play football. But let's go
Epsom
to
salt
Nick.
is
I'm
good,
curious
no,
to
works.
know because I kind of have seen your guys' thoughts along the lines of Jill Stein. So I'm curious because I haven't heard Nick. So let's go to Nick. What is your assessment of the 4 independent candidates, and then sort of who are you sort of leaning towards? And also, go ahead.
I'm sorry. PSL party is obviously the best. I can't vote for them because they're not on the ballot. The only reason I will vote, I don't know what the ballot issues are, but that's the only reason I vote now for ballot issues. In Missouri, we got affordable housing because of ballot initiatives. We got legalized marijuana. We got increased minimum wage. We got Medicaid expansion. The only good things that happen in my state is because of ballot initiatives. So I'm gonna look at the ballot initiatives, and if there's an initiative worth voting for, like I voted in the 2022 midterms just because we had the affordable housing and Casey Tenets. They did a big drive. I actually was at one of the events where they was raising awareness about one of the ballot initiatives. So the only way I'm voting is there's a ballot initiative that's worth the damn. I haven't heard anything coming up. If there is, I will let you guys know. And that's why. And then if I'm there, I might as well vote for a third party while I'm there. If I'm there and there's a good ballot initiative, I'm probably voting for the Green Party again. But I said before, and I really do mean this, I'm done with the era of us declaring our support. And I say I'm voting for the Green Party just because PSL's on the ballot, Dr. Cornel West won't be on the ballot, and everyone else is disqualified for multiple reasons. So what my position is personally, it never hurts to vote for someone who's anti-war and vote and third party, as long as you're not voting for someone outside your principle. My argument against electoral politics in general is that it sucks up too much energy. It sucks up too much of our attention. That's why I say I will only vote if there just so happen to be a ballot initiative on there. If you have a job and you need to take time off, you're paying to vote. You guys understand? You pay to vote. I had to do this all the time. I had to take PTO. I used to be a patriotic American. Like, I'll take the time off to vote. Nigga, I'm paid to vote. It's so absurd to think about it. You pay to vote. You know what I mean? Even if you don't take if you're hourly worker, you take vacation time. You still pay to vote, no matter what you.
Right.
So
you're giving up time.
My objection to ordinary people, if it's not super easy to vote, like I can go to the library and vote in like 10, 15 minutes. If it's not super easy to vote, it's probably not a good time. Waste your time. But if you do vote for a third party, vote for anti-imperialist. I would add anti-capitalist personally, but in general, anti-imperialist third party. If you just so happen to vote, voting, we all know, not going to lead to a revolution or anything. But I do think ballot initiatives have been, just materially speaking, is a good thing in terms of electoral politics. When I say 15% of your time should go electoral politics, that's what I'm kind of talking about. And if you don't have ballot initiatives in your state, that should be your priority, right? And trying to find a way to get ballot initiatives in your state. That should be your guys' red line and everything like that. So,
what is your
Nick, when the time comes, I hope you will consider my candidate, Dave Chappelle.
But Nick, chime in on the what do you think Dr. Jill Stein is going to do with her campaign manager situation? Maybe, you know what? I never thought of this. Maybe she saved the best campaign manager for herself. So maybe she will introduce somebody we haven't heard. But what is your take, Nick, on her campaign manager?
I don't think it's going to happen because he showed no interest in getting back into politics and leadership. But if Jill Stein chooses Ojamu Braka again, like, that's a good thing, isn't it? And they would be in
for a campaign manager,
like it's like campaign manager, running mate, whatever. I don't know how to
running mate. Okay,
but I voted for that. Well, no, I didn't vote for that ticket. I didn't vote for them in 2012. Yeah, Ojamu was 2012, 2016. No, Ojamu was 2016. Sorry, it was
2016.
Terry Honkala 2012. So yeah, I voted for that ticket before. Probably vote for it again, but I'm being careful when I say that because I truly do believe that we shouldn't declare our support for people.
Yeah,
like so I'm being careful.
I get your point.
I am answering your question at the same time. if it's on the ballot right now, if there's something that worth me going out to vote in terms of ballot initiatives, I might as well vote for it. Like if I'm there, if I'm already filling out the ballot, to me that's just my mindset. But not something that we should put too much energy and focus on. If that makes sense. Hopefully that's not contradiction to
No, that makes sense.
If you don't mind, I'll bounce out a little bit early. I'm starving. I have a show with Wyatt Reed. I wanted to say my stories for when he joins tomorrow because I have quite a bit to cover. So I wanted to wait for that. So that's why I'm gonna dip out just a little bit early here. We got Wyatt Reed on tomorrow. You can join if you want to, CJ, or you can take a day off.
Yeah, I might take it off. One kind of ham.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, guys, if you guys know, I'm pro breaks. I tell you, people take breaks all the time. I'm pro breaks. So Wyatt Reed with us tomorrow. I see you guys tomorrow.
Like a Dow mental health break or just a MMA break?
I didn't start RBN just to run it like a capitalist and demand you motherfuckers to work. Like that's not what we started this. Yeah. But anyway, Russell, Keaton, you guys are killing it. Good to talk to you guys again.
All right, my friend. Good seeing you, man.
Might see you tomorrow. All right, so let's go to the due dissonance, guys. Whoever wants to start first, what say you about the 4 independent candidates: Cornell, Claudia, Jill, and RFK? And if you don't want to give who you're voting for, like who are you leaning with? Who do you think is a better candidate? Any assessment to let us know what you think.
I mean, of all of these, I'd probably, if I had to, because some people in the chat are saying she will be on the ballot in New York, I probably would vote for Claudia because she's, a left-wing anti-imperialist candidate who hasn't humiliated her supporters with some bizarre musical chairs nominating process the way Jill and Cornell have. No, I'm running. No, you're running. Hey, maybe you can run with me. Hey, so just in principle, I'd probably vote for Claudia.
I mean, it seems like what happened with Jill Stein is she looked around and she's given her life to this party and she said, we just can't do the Howie Hawkins thing again. That's just too humiliating. So I guess I'm just going to have to run because there's just nobody else to do it. Honestly, I think that's why she's running. I think she's running for lack of options. I'm
sorry, go ahead.
I guess if I had to choose between these people, Claudia Dela Cruz, I don't really know enough about her to say definitely. But I'll vote for an actual candidate if there's a strategic purpose. But I live in New York, so it's rare that that's the case, that there's a point to my even caring about that. Like I will vote like Green Party if there's something going on, if there's a get them over 5%, if there's a logic to it. But otherwise, I write in Dave Chappelle. So,
yeah, and the fact that, I agree with Russell, what he's saying. It seems like that's correct. It seems like Jill is running to fill a void, right? Oh, I guess we have to run someone this year, so I'll do it. Meanwhile, you're talking about a historic year for a third-party movement. This was the year for the Greens to get their shit together, right? And you could have seen this coming as soon as Biden won because you knew Trump was going to run again, and you knew that a Biden-Trump rematch would create this major opportunity for third parties. So every third party should have been trying to recruit the best slate of candidates they possibly could, knowing that this was going to be the best year in a long while to make an impact. And what have they done? Libertarians seems like radio silence. Seems like nobody knows what the hell they're up to. They haven't said not a peep out of them.
They still have a candidate.
This complete nightmare. The Greens just a disaster. I mean, it's a real shame. It's a real shame because this was a big opportunity for third parties. And now it looks like the one who's going to make the most impact by far is RFK, who, for many reasons, we all know by now, is just a non-starter in this space, rightfully so. So what the fuck? I mean, it's just like, it really is a shame. It is a shame, and it is a colossal, the latest in a long list of colossal failures over at the Green Party that they could not get their shit together to run a really serious candidate this cycle. And that's not any disrespect to Jill Stein, but in order to make an impact, you need a name, you need a star, you need a Jesse Ventura, you need a Cornel West, you need an RFK, you need someone with name ID who's going to get eyes on her. Jill Stein's not that person. She'll get her 1% to 2%. If Cornell manages to get on ballots, they're just going to split the vote. She'll get half a point, he'll get half a point. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to have them running against each other. So, yeah, just obviously total shit show, total wasted opportunity for the third party movement. But they will have a lot of names out there. And look, anything is possible with Biden and Trump on the ballot because Trump could be dragged away in handcuffs any day and Biden even worse any day, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. So anything could happen.
Yeah.
Russell?
And with RFK, you're not even getting a third party out of it. RFK's candidacy begins and ends with RFK.
Yeah.
It's not even like when he goes down, you have the skeleton of a third party to work with as a result of his candidacy. He's Ross Perot, it's not, nothing's going to come of it.
Right.
You know what? I don't know how I missed this. And maybe I knew this and I just forgot it. I didn't know that he was I forgot that he was married to Cheryl Hines because I freaking Curb Your Enthusiasm is like top 3 show.
That must make for some very interesting conversations on that set these days.
I was like, man, that is changing my view. I was like, I don't want it to change my view of the show. But yeah, that was something I had learned in the last, believe it or not, I just learned this last week when I saw the interview of him because the even mainstream media, I saw it on CNN is where I saw this segment. They have to start talking about him more seriously now that he's polling literally 22% in one of the polls. He's polling the 3 of them. And then he's polling above both Biden and Trump when it comes to young voters. It's just astonishing when it comes to independents too. He's beating, but so they have to, even if they don't want to, they have to kind of take him seriously. Now, do you think, are you one of the, or who do you believe that he's going to pull? And we're using ruling class language as siphoning and pulling. Do you think he will affect the people who will vote for Donald Trump more or Biden? And the reason I say Trump is specifically the vaccination stuff. The Democrats are cowbell, shot taking, sort of, make sure I'm going to do it. And I'm not saying if you did it, it's bad. We got people on our network that's done it and some that haven't. But I think that might be one of the things that keep the diehard Democrats from voting for him. But then again, the big Israeli push might bring them back. But what say you, Russell and Keaton, or whoever wants to go first? What say you about that point?
Well, Keaton called this ahead of time, and the polling seems to be proving him right. So you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I've always thought he was going to hurt Biden more than Trump for 2 reasons. Number one, Biden's base is much less loyal to Biden than Trump's base is to Trump.
I remember you saying
Trump's base is much more loyal to him than Biden's base is to him. Second, RFK gets a lot of sympathy from Trump supporters for the vaccine and to a certain extent for Ukraine, but he also has some really just orthodox shit-lib views. He's called the NRA a terrorist organization. That's a non-starter with most Trump voters. He's an environmental lawyer. That doesn't sit well with a lot of conservatives either. He is, at the end of the day, for the most part, a pretty mainstream liberal. And so Republicans liked him when he was running against Biden, just like a lot of them spoke highly of Bernie when Bernie was running against Biden.
I remember that.
They like you until you run against them. Once you run against Trump, what are they going to vote for him over Trump for, really? A lot of independents are going to vote for RFK, and a lot of Biden's sort of soft supporters are going to vote for RFK, especially if RFK continues to poll well, because right now, if he can manage to get on ballots, he is polling in a position, and this sounds crazy, he's polling in a position to actually win. Now, that polling has a huge asterisk next to it because he has a gargantuan task ahead of him to get on the ballots. It's one thing to poll well. I'm sure The Rock would poll well if you ask who you're going to vote for. But The Rock has no team. The Rock can't get on any state ballots without a team. So if RFK can get on ballots, then he's in a position to win. A lot of the soft Biden supporters, I think, will go to him more so than soft Trump supporters will defect from Trump. And so far, the polling does seem to bear that out. It's close. It's not a blowout, but he does seem to be peeling more from Biden than from Trump.
Yeah, I've seen some of the polling, and it does bear out that it's pretty,
it's close.
Where they thought it was going to be one, but it's pretty close.
Right.
But go ahead, Russell, you're going to chime in?
No. I just agree with, Keaton was very prophetic with that. He was first on this as far as I can see. And yeah, I mean, the polling bore that out. Why are Trump voters going to go to him? Like that Second Amendment thing, that is it. That is a deal breaker.
They suck a booster shot up their ass before they gave their gun away. Like that is, that's a deal breaker.
Give it right here.
Just keep that gun. Yeah.
And look, Trump, even though in the end it was under his watch that the vaccine was created, he reads as anti-mandate. Right? He reads as anti-vax to the extent that they really care about it, which is on the mandate level.
Right.
So it's not like, well, we have to go for RFK because Trump's a maniac on the vaccine. So what's his pitch once you throw all those other things in there? So yeah, I think Keaton was right about that.
Right on. All right, fellas. I hope you have time for one more segment. I know I was going to probably end after this, but I do want to get to this segment, and that's this March for Israel. It's a brief segment, but it is a segment that I feel like we should cover, and that is March for Israel. I do have a couple of receipts that I want to show, so let's get to that. So if you hadn't heard, if you've been under a rock, there's been a lot of protests, pro-Palestinian, what the corporate media has labeled anti-Israel or pro-Hamas protests. And I guess maybe, I don't know if we should look at it this way, where now the other side, if you will, the Zionist side, want to show that they have solidarity with large amounts of people. Maybe that's their whole point. And it leads us to this here, and that's the March for Israel. When was the first time you guys heard about this march? I literally heard about this last night. When was the first time?
A few days ago.
Oh my God, Van Jones.
Yeah, a few days ago I heard about it.
Right on. Yeah, so March for Israel. Here goes some of the speakers. Dr. Rochelle Ford, Van Jones. That seems to be one of the ones that has surprised a lot of people. And we're going to get to some of those receipts. And then there's Deborah Messing. That doesn't surprise me.
No.
Tavar.
If there's a bad shit lib take, she has it.
And then another name that people might recognize, that is Michael Rappaport. He's the famous guy the comedian that calls out Trump a lot in a very Keith Olbermann sort of way.
Yeah,
he's that guy. But in this instance, he is
man,
not.
Yo, fucking what? Ceasefire?
Yeah,
yo, fuck you.
That's him.
That's his speech,
him.
yeah.
That's his spill. But let me just read this here. Tomorrow's, and that's today. This is from yesterday. It says tomorrow's pro-genocide march in D.C. has announced its guest speakers, including racists like Michael Rappaport and fake progressives like Van Jones. This anti-Palestinian march, helped by the U.S. government, expect to gather a large crowd in support of 75 years of apartheid and occupation. I'm going to read a couple of just tweets in reaction to this. This next one from Mark Lamont Hill. And for those that don't know Mark Lamont Hill, he was famously, I think, removed from cable news as an anchor or as anchor.
He was
I
at
think
CNN,
he's at Al Jazeera now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was removed for his stance or his belief in
he spoke at a Free Palestine event, and he said the thing you can't say, from the river to the sea, so they canned him.
Right, which is just amazing. But let me read what he says as a reaction to Van Jones specifically being there. I don't know if you guys saw this. I am profoundly disappointed that Van Jones is speaking at a march for Israel in D.C. In addition to the noble goals of fighting anti-Semitism and honoring innocent lives lost on 10/7, the march is also organized to affirm U.S. solidarity with an Israeli government that has been has not only been identified as an apartheid state by numerous human rights groups around the world, but is actively committing multiple war crimes in a genocidal campaign against the people of Gaza. He could be calling for a ceasefire. He could be decrying the use of indiscriminate and disproportionate force. He could be demanding that Democrats, liberals, progressives, and other members of the so-called left speak up. Instead, he's speaking at a rally in solidarity with an apartheid state. This is not what I expect from someone who self-identifies as a fighter for human rights, democracy, or social justice. Go ahead. I think Russell, you were going to chime in, or somebody.
Well, there is some video. If I could just interject, because I don't know if you saw
ahead.
this, CJ, because it just came out now. So if you want, I can share my screen.
Absolutely.
Okay, so apparently, and like I said, I don't know this, but this is what it seems to me based on the tweet, and we can watch the video together. Van Jones at the March for Israel. I'm a peace guy. I pray for peace. No more rockets from Gaza and no more bombs falling down on the people of Gaza. The child breaks into a no ceasefire chant shortly after. So apparently, maybe he figured he could go there and try and be a voice of moderation. I mean, he still shouldn't have been there. There's no excuse for showing up and dealing with these fucking people. But anyway, maybe he thought that he would go and talk some sense into them, and apparently not. So do you want to play this? I haven't seen this, but here it is.
Yeah, let's play it.
All right, let's do it.
Breaking news.
I pray for peace. No more rockets from Gaza and no more bombs falling down on the people of Gaza. God protect the children. God protect children. Let's end all the horror and all the heartbreak in the Holy Land. Let's end all of it.
Wonderful people.
But I'll be honest in closing. When I think about what's happening over there, I don't feel powerful to do something about what's happening over there. What I do feel powerful is
There's
to
the chant, no
something
ceasefire.
about what's happening here. Let's take a stand here against anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslims. Let's take a stand.
They're not
here.
interested.
Wow.
They're scum.
Wow.
The people at this
Let's take a
march
stand here
are disgusting
hatred of all
pieces of
kinds.
bigoted mass murdering shit. They're not interested in your appeal for moderation and decency. This is not. Yeah, I mean, what the fuck were you thinking? What the fuck were you thinking? You just clowned yourself for no reason, only to get booed and shouted off the stage when you tried to appeal to the humanity of a group of people who, in the midst of hospitals being sieged, you're going to appear at a pro-Israel march thinking what? You're going to talk sense into these people? What a fucking moron. I swear, he's a fucking moron. That guy's a fucking dumbass. I'm sorry. What a stupid fucking piece of shit.
Well, you're talking about the kind of people who would have shown up there to begin with, who would have shown up for this kind of rally.
Yeah, exactly.
There's basically, he went to Nuremberg and said, okay, guys, so about the camps, about the yellow stars, too far? Too much, maybe?
Right.
Let's dial it down. And that's what you get from fascist Nazis. We were going to do this piece the other day. We got to talk about this because it's not on the list for tomorrow yet.
Well, this is on the list for tomorrow. We got to do this.
Well, that sure is. We were looking at these videos of people talking about how much they had changed their mind. We have one Jewish girl talking about responding to somebody asked, when did you start to think differently about Palestine? And it was a very typical, girl from a traditional Jewish background who said, too late. I didn't realize, and she started listing all these facts about Palestine that nobody really knew a month ago. The Nakba, I swear to God, I'm Jewish. I never heard the word, which now we know why, because unless you dig into this, Jews have suppressed anybody saying that, just like they're trying to suppress from the river to the sea as a phrase. They haven't allowed any discussion of what that is. I saw another from a gentleman, I believe is Arab, saying, thank you, Israel, for showing people who you really are. This has been terrible for Israel. It has really exposed what it is. It's made a lot of people. I ordered a book about the Middle East, and I looked at multiple booksellers, and I could not get a hard copy. I could only get a digital copy because everybody's buying these books. They're educating themselves. What's going on over there? How did this happen? And it's the kind of thing, and this is why Zionists cannot allow a conversation, just like the Scientologists we were discussing before. Because as soon as you start talking about it, as soon as you start peeling back the layers, it doesn't favor them. You cannot justify based on modern precepts of decency and justice, not just what's happening now. You can't justify the entire history of Israel as a modern state. It was always based on a crime. It was always built on mass relocation.
Yeah, and that's a great analysis and breakdown there, Russell. Here, I'm just going to show just a couple of receipts here of I must say, this doesn't look as diverse, and I mean, just quick glance. I'm just saying that's what it looks like. I'm trying to be nice. It just doesn't look as.
If this were the summertime, you could have sold a lot of sunscreen at that
event. So this is just a video from Tim Cass. Tim Pool put this out, so he's evidently there. So apparently, the talk that he had with Aaron Mate yesterday on this show didn't take effect too much. Now they didn't talk about Israel as much, but yeah. Now here's John Fetterman there, and look what he's wearing, guys. He's wearing the flag of
he thinks he's at Woodstock.
He thinks he's at Woodstock. Now let me play this funny video. I know you guys know this person. He plays funny, does funny stuff. He does. It's for Me's TV. He does politics, but it's a little bit of humor. So let's watch this.
Something called a March for Israel is set to take place later today. What it really is, though, is a pro-genocide rally sponsored by the Israel lobby and promoted by politicians who want to manufacture public support for their deeply unpopular stance that the U.S. should be assisting in the ethnic cleansing campaign of Palestinians. Tens of thousands are expected to attend the rally. I'll believe it when I see it. Even if the crowds do show up, they would still be dwarfed by the size of the rally in D.C. last week that featured more than 300,000 people demanding a ceasefire now and Palestinian liberation. Congressional leadership is providing transportation for lawmakers to attend and speak at the rally. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is expected to deliver remarks. So too is House Speaker Mike Johnson and the Democrats' House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries.
Wow. You mean they're having these? Yeah, and these are not like staffers. They're naming like Chuck Schumer. I think Hakeem Jeffries is going to be there too. But they're naming like the top brass of the leadership. That's astonishing to me that they're going to be showing up here to a rally.
To see Democrats and Republicans working together for mass murder.
Yeah, I mean,
notice how they set their differences aside when it comes time to genocide a population of colonized brown people in an open air concentration camp.
Well, Chuck Schumer, as we were discussing before, is what, if he were any other religion, we would call a dangerous religious fanatic. He literally went on stage and claimed that the right of Jews to Israel is based in the Torah. That sounds like a dangerous religious whack job to me. That's certainly what we would call him if he said something like that and he were Christian or Muslim. If you're Jewish, that passes. No attention was even brought to it.
You know, if there's another one of these, we have to go and like troll it. We have to come up with some clever trolls to expose them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, we're going to wind up with one leg on one side of the mall and our head on the other. with these fucking
no, I mean
psychos.
like subtle. No, like pose. Yeah.
They'll rip us limb from limb over there.
No, but like sell merchandise that's disguised as pro-Israel merchandise. You know what I mean?
Well, I liked your idea of
that trolls them. Sell a button that says, it's not a war crime when we do it, and see how many people buy it.
No, he pitched yesterday a yarmulke with Palestine flag colors.
Oh yeah, one of our channels. Yeah.
All right.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog will also deliver a speech.
Wait, he's
fresh
gonna be
on the
there
heels
too?
of making the case last week that the Israeli military is justified in targeting journalists in Gaza for assassination. This depraved rally is taking place while the Israeli military's razing of Gaza has reached the Al-Shifa medical complex, which is the largest in the besieged enclave. Doctors Without Borders has been reporting on the hellish conditions inside the hospital, where heroic medical staff are forced to care for people without clean water and electricity under constant Israeli bombardment and sniper fire. The human.
So that's the only part I wanted to play of that video, just to kind of give a breakdown of the march, because there's a couple more receipts, and I do want to just do a sweep before I close this, because the rally is literally going on right now as we're on
right
here.
now, yeah.
Right, there could be some updates before we get out of here, just because if there's another clip, I would love to see it. Just to show you a couple of the flyers, some of the graphics they put out. Americans, March for Israel, March to Free Hostages, March Against Anti-Semitism. They need to add March for Genocide or March for Killing Babies, something like that. Also need to be added to this here. That's one of the graphics. Mother Jones put out a article. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'll read out what they tweeted out. John Hagee, I think that's how you say it, who once claimed that God sent Hitler to create Israel, is reportedly speaking at today's March for Israel rally in DC, when tens of thousands are expected to condemn rising anti-Semitism. We all know that march is not about anti-Semitism. Get out of here now.
And Jews that get in bed with these people, it's like, do you understand that the only reason they support Israel is because they think it needs to be there for Jesus to do an encore?
Right. At which point you're all going to be lit on fire.
Right. And then they get raptured, and you get cast into the pit, or I don't know what happens to the Jews in their scenario. Like once they have birthed the Book of Revelation conclusion. I don't think it's good. I guess they either convert or they go to hell, right?
I think that's the rule.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Three non-religious guys. I'm not sure if you know. All right, so let's check out this video that they put out to promote this march. Is 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
They got the audacity to say March for Peace in their video, guys.
Wow.
It's just amazing. But this feels, and just going through some of the receipts, this feels not like an organic event, guys. This feels like Israel and the United States government is putting on this event to appear as if Israel, or being pro-Zionist, has the same sort of grassroots support that freeing Palestine has, and it just does not. Now, there's a couple of other things here I want to show. Let me start here. Go back to this. Some reaction. I'm going to show this one and show Max Blumenthal. And this is Ajamu Baraka. He says, how will Van Jones go? I'm sorry, how low will Van Jones go? He will cry on Clinton News Network with his allies in the fascist Democrat Party in response to social injustice, but he now stands with a murderous right-wing racist state responsible for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Pathetic. And that is from Ajamu Baraka. And then Max Blumenthal adds this little bit of information. Former director of Bay Area revolutionary Marxist organization Storm. Maoist. I said Marxist. Yeah, Maoist. This is something I did not know.
I didn't know that either.
About Van Jones. What?
That cat was a Maoist. This guy.
Wow. Maoist organization, Storm, to speaker at this week's March for Israel genocide rally. The Van Jones hustle takes an increasingly farcistical dimension, and it's just showing the differences here, and then him being on this graphic. I don't understand his thought thinking process in this. Maybe he's delivering a favor for an Israeli lobbyist or something like that by showing up here, or some politician. But here is Norman Finkelstein, and he says, "Come one, come all, join the Jews for Baby Killers March."
That sounds like Norm.
It's a shame he didn't discover Twitter sooner, because he could have been one of the all-time great accounts. I mean, he still might be. I mean, he's on great pace. He's been tearing it up. He's gained like almost 100,000 followers in the past month or so.
Wait, what? Oh yeah, he got 273,000.
It's a good medium for him. Oh yeah, very good medium for him.
Yeah, it's something about like an.
What's this 280 character limit? I need 2,000 characters at least.
It's something about an older radical person who don't give a fuck. Like they're made perfectly for Twitter. And he goes on to say, 2 headlines in today's New York Times, quote, "Dozens of babies at the Al-Shafa hospital are at risk without electricity for incubators." And the second one is, "Jewish groups to rally for Israel on Washington Mall," which is just showing that that contrast. And a lot of what these receipts are showing a contrast. And I wanted to show this too. They took the original flyer and added a little bit to it. Premature baby killers live in Washington, D.C., 11/17. And I know, Keaton, you might have been looking through the feed. Have you come across any other new videos at the March for Israel? I'm looking myself.
The only other video I saw was the one you already played of the crowd. Other than that, I haven't seen any other videos yet. I'm sure they're live streaming it somewhere. I'm sure a ton are going to surface. I'm sure that lunatic who said, God made Hitler to create Israel, I'm sure there'll be a clip of him by tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be stuff out soon. But like I said, the event's not even over, so it's.
Yeah, so that's probably why it's not a lot of stuff that has been posted yet. But remember, when the Palestinian march was going on, there was a lot of people posting. It just seems odd, or either that, or I'm not in their. They're not in my algorithm.
They're probably
like
not
maybe
in.
I'm
Probably, exactly.
Yeah,
probably
that could be it. Because
Probably
again,
not
I don't see
traveling in the
anything
same
new.
circles.
No,
And
it
doesn't look.
Don't care about your feelings Discord to get access to all this new late breaking stuff. Yeah.
Well, and I think I think people on our side weren't prepared. This came together pretty quick because it doesn't say you're not seeing from our side the counter demonstrations. It is disappointing to see so many people there, but then you have to put it in context. You had a march with millions of people from around the fucking world last week. This was the best they could do with one event in D.C., concentrating everyone who thinks this way in the same place on the same day. There's no worldwide demonstration going on like this. This is it.
And someone else said, and believe it or not, this was a
Let
shit
Israel finish the job. Wow.
Yeah, this was a shitlib who said something along the effects of it's very telling that the March for Israel is during the week. She said it's very telling about your class that the March for Israel is during the week, because people who work, they can only do their marches on the weekend. That's why the pro-Palestinian marches are on the weekend, and this march is during the week, because you're not taking their weekend at the lake away. You're not taking these guys' weekend at the lake away with some freaking march. They're not going to be doing that, but they'll do this during the week. And yes, Russell, this is a photo to end this segment. This is a photo from the march, and it says, "Let Israel finish the job." And it's note that it doesn't say finish the job of Hamas. Finish the job of what? And it's very telling.
That's what it is.
Exactly. It's very telling that the people who are pro-Israel so readily mislabel you intentionally. Like, they label these protests pro-Hamas when there's not a single stitch. No one's saying Hamas. There's no signs that say Hamas. They just label you pro-Hamas. They label it anti-Semitic, even if there's just one incident. And these are my final words, and I'll pass it to you for you guys just for your final words on this topic. To me, it's sort of a sign that they're not going to win this battle of PR, and possibly not even the battle over Israel or Palestine, whatever you call it. Because if you have to, in order, it feels like 5 weeks of mass protests versus this one protest is an indication that the narrative of Zionists is losing and will lose. Do they think they're going to change all those people's minds that came out for Free Palestine with a little bit more of propaganda and you just labeling us anti-Semitic? Do you think that's going to change our mind? Like, the people who are out there marching, and I say this to Nick all the time, those are the people who know the most about the issue. So you're not going to propagandize those people. There's no convincing. You know what I'm saying? I'm basically saying they're not going to change anybody's mind who is pro-Israel to being, pro-Palestine to being pro-Israel. But I'll pass it to you guys for last words on this segment. And then we're going to actually close the stream too.
Yeah, no, they've lost the PR battle. There's no getting it back. And it's unfortunate that there's no way to really channel this sentiment in any sort of electoral direction in 2024. You Biden and Trump both are horrible on this. RFK equally horrible on this, if not even fucking worse. So, like, and those are the only three candidates with any significant polling right now. And so there is momentum. In an election year, where do you channel that momentum? Not within the electoral system. So I'm going to pitch something on the air, all right? And it sounds like Nick would be open to this, since he was talking about he's sort of over electoral politics. We may want to rebrand this to the post-duopoly show, to the post-electoral show, because there's really no, I just don't see any momentum. It doesn't have the same ring to it. Maybe we should stick with post-duopoly. It sounds better. Post-electoral doesn't really have a rhythm. But it's true. Like, where is the action now? The action is in the streets. The action is online. The action is shouting these people down as loudly as we can, as often as we can. Part of the reason, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why I feel strongly about this. There's a lot of reasons why we speak out against, what's going on now as strongly as we do. But one of the big reasons is that you have only 34% of Americans are against a ceasefire right now. And the people at that rally who shouted down Van Jones when he said, "Let's stop bombing the children of Gaza because the children of Gaza are precious," they represent a majority of the pro-Israel faction. When you talk about politics, you're talking about people being siloed into certain camps. It's very easy for people of goodwill to be siloed into the MAGA camp, or even siloed into the Biden camp, right? Like, it's very easy for people to fall for shit and not consciously supporting evil and things like that. Right, this is different. This is different. A majority of people who are backing Israel now, a majority of the ordinary rank and file Israel supporters now, are consciously pro-murder. And that's why they need to be given hell. because they support mass murder. That's why I tweet. Notice when I tweet at people now, I say you consciously and full-throatedly support the mass murder of children, because they do. I don't tweet that way about Trump supporters. I don't even tweet that way about shit libs. I could be a nasty bastard against the shit libs, but I don't go there. Here I go there, because you're entering a whole new realm of evil with these people. These people who go to a march like this and shout down Van Jones. These are sick, bloodthirsty, disgusting people, and they have to be shouted down, and they are being shouted down, which is why we're winning. Which is why we're winning the PR. We're winning the PR war, and the PR war now is tomorrow's battle in terms of the global order. Israel will pay a price for this. They're not going to get away with this. They will be sanctioned down the road. They will become a pariah state down the road. I don't think very far down the road. But that's why it's important to talk like this, and it's important to not mince words with these people. You need to call these people out for what they are. They are evil. They are evil scum who are supporting this.
Yeah, and when they say arguing from the river to the sea is eliminationist, as Keith was saying before, I'm not going to be eliminated, and Jews who give Palestinians back the land they stole from them will not be eliminated either. I mean, you could call any war eliminationist by that standard. They're using that kind of language, as libs always do. They want to define what you're allowed to say because they can't win the argument on its own terms. So they always want to fall back on politeness and manners. That is where the bourgeois likes to fight, over manners and propriety. They don't actually want to talk about the facts because they know the facts do not favor them. These people who are at that march, look, I went to Hebrew school. Keaton didn't. I know what they teach you there. They teach you Hebrew and they teach you Zionism. They brainwash you with that Zionism from a very early age. I grew up with a bunch of Italian tough guys, so it didn't take with me. But, like the people who, that's their whole world. They're surrounded by that. You understand that from childhood, Arabs are portrayed very much the way the Nazis portrayed the Jews. As inherently flawed, sinister, violent, bestial. I mean, it's a classic colonial narrative. That's why I'm very skeptical, and I will say again, I'm not saying it didn't happen. That is why I'm very skeptical of some of the claims of sexual assault in the attack until I see some evidence of it, because it just tracks with those tropes too well. And the more I ask Zionists for evidence of that, not in a confrontational way, like, hey, I want to see it, and they don't present it, the more skeptical I become of it.
Absolutely. And I think that might do it. I know Keaton and I going to be heading out soon to go pick up our kids, probably you before me. But when can people see Due Dissidence next? And when is your next live stream? Any other sort of announcements, any activism? What's happening in your city? Give us the rundown. Go ahead.
We'll be on tomorrow at 8:00 p.m. Wednesday nights at 8 are our regularly scheduled streams. So we'll be on at 8:00. But there is actually going to be, and Russell, you may want to go film this. There is going to be a protest at Columbia University, 116th Street.
Oh, you
Broadway,
got more information?
At 2 p.m. It's at the 116th and Broadway, which is, I believe, right. That's the entrance to the campus, right?
That's about a mile from me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's close. And it is in protest of the student groups being banned. So Jewish Voice for Peace was suspended through the end of the semester, if not the end of the year, by Columbia, along with, I forget the name of the other Palestine group. It was SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine. I may be butchering that. I'm sorry if I am. But there were two pro-Palestinian groups that were banned by the university. And there's going to be a protest at 116th and Broadway tomorrow at 2 p.m. to protest the university doing that. And I think they're going to get a very big crowd.
Great.
Awesome to hear. I don't have any updates on what LA protests. We're always having it. So hopefully I might be able to get out there next weekend. If not, because I feel like an organization, if not multiple, will step up in response to this March for Israel. It's going to pump people up to do another sort of larger sort of event. So I'll be looking for that. I might take tomorrow off. Nick will be here in the daytime. No Nick at night, but he has Wyatt Reed. And then Thursday might be back. So stay tuned for that, gentlemen. We will be back here again. I actually like this time slot. So if in the
Yeah, I like
future
the
it might be at
afternoons.
nighttime.
I like the matinees.
Yeah, I like this time slot. Yeah. So if we're able to do this again at this time, we will. If not, we'll be at night. So I'm pretty flexible. I'll put both of you in the back. Thank you for joining again,
Thank you, man.
gentlemen. And let's see. I got a couple of super chats I'm gonna get to, and what's one other thing I can get to here? Let me bring this up. I'm just gonna do one more refresher just to see if there's any new news that I have not played. Oh, actually, yeah, this is part of. I guess Aaron, you can add this at the end. This is part of the March for Israel segment. So add this to the end of that. One more receipt I forgot to add, and that's this one. Nikki Haley, DC March for Israel flags key truth. The West now faces a moral test. And let me read a little bit of it. I'm going to blow it up first. So let's make this bigger. Now, Nikki Haley wrote this article herself out of the New York Post, and it's about the March for Israel. So this is Nikki Haley, and I'm going to read that in a Okay. One of my family members was yelling something to me, and I wanted to respond. I had to yell. All right, so let me read this here. And again, this is from Nikki Haley wrote this. I just took some snippets from the article. I don't want to read the whole propaganda article, but this is Nikki Haley, and she says, we need to remind ourselves what we as civilizations stand for, and just as important, what we stand against. The March for Israel will be in stark contrast with the countless protests that have swept college campuses and major American and European cities. In those protests, supposedly educated people and elite voices have tried to justify Hamas' barbaric October 7th attack on Israel, in which babies were beheaded and parents murdered in front of their children. Students and citizens of free countries have loudly called for Israel's obliteration, declaring that its attempt to defeat a terrorist enemy are acts of oppression and colonialism. This is blatant anti-Semitism. It's an outright assault on the bedrock principles of Western civilization. Those who criticize Israel are either willfully blind or easily misled. They must not realize Israel protects the rights of its Jewish and Arab citizens. She really had the audacity to say that alike. While Hamas denies freedom to all in Gaza. They must not understand Israel respects human dignity, while Hamas sentenced gays and lesbians to prison and even death. And they do not see Israel goes to great lengths to protect civilians, while the terrorists deliberately put innocent Palestinians in harm's way, using them as human shields and abusing their deaths for propaganda. It's bad enough to hear statements of equivocation about Israel and Hamas. It's far worse to hear some Americans and Europeans say Israel is the enemy. In a battle between good and evil, there is no room for such moral confusion. And that is from Nikki Haley. I mean, that read like an unhinged sea hag there from Nikki Haley. And is there any other item here I wanted to show? Because here is Speaker of the House Mike Johnson talking at the same rally, March for Israel.
The calls for a ceasefire are outrageous. We stand. The calls for a ceasefire are outrageous.
This is so not organic. But there you go. I think that's the last receipt I have on it, and I just found those right as I was scrolling at the end, which is what I try to do. Try to find anything I haven't reported on before I get out of here, and I'm gonna do that now. Let's see. Heartbreaking last interview with Dr. Yeah, there was a doctor that did an interview with Democracy Now! He's now dead in Palestine. And then Zionism, here's proof. Let's listen to this one. This is Dan Cohen. I'll just go through my feed and play a couple of things that's in my feed here. Let's listen to this one.
Let's play a game called Did This Happen in Nazi Germany or Modern Day Israel? Spread fake literature from the minority claiming it was evidence that they want to destroy you. It happened in both. Gave contraceptives to minority groups to stop them from reproducing. It happened in both. Claiming that if you lost the war, the minority group will rape your women and kill your children. It happened in both. Claiming that the minority group was lazy, useless, and exploitative. It happened in both. Positioned itself as the victim in a heroic battle and the minority group as the aggressor, surrounding them on all sides. It happened in both. Established laws that restricted the movement of people and created segregated areas. It happened in both. Had ministers say that the minority group are not human, but rather animals. It happened in both. Threatened to attack neighboring countries. It happened in both. Launched a full-scale attack destroying places of worship, hospitals, and schools in response to an attack by an extremist from the minority group. It happened in both.
So there was one more video. All right, so I think I'm going to be getting out of here. I am going to read the super chats. Let's see. Where are those super chats? I do want to shout this out while I look for those. I got to refresh my super chats. They're not showing up. I'll shout this out while I look it up. Did you go get Kaylani? I was yelling it out. You didn't hear me yelling? You're gonna be late. All right, I think I have it now. And my wife. To say something to my wife really quick, but here is. I don't know why this super chats are not showing up. Let me refresh it again. There's a little bit of a glitch, everybody. I'm trying to reach your super chats here. Okay. Okay. All right. So it looks like they're here now. I don't think we've read any today. So let's start here. This one from Janice Anderson. People have mentioned there's no Rumble stream, and we did see that. And we added it on. So thank you, Janice, for that. You were the reason we noticed that there was a glitch on StreamYard, and we got it fixed. So thank you for that. Here is Mosaic, and it says top tier lineup. You guys plus JD are the real left. Thank you for that compliment, Mosaic. And here's this one, Samuel Bruce. Wanted to clarify, and I did read this one earlier only because it it was pertinent to what we were talking about at the time. I love Do Dissonance plus RBN Tag Team. I was mad because sometimes there isn't a clean handoff where I am catch both programs live. Much love. So yes, they did understand what you mean after the time. So here, this one from John. Thank you for this super chat. Western imperialism has always been about who controls the trade between the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean. Zionism and money to Egypt is about British and U.S. control of the Suez Canal. Yes. And we've played a snippet of a documentary about that very part that you bring up there in that super chat, John. Thank you for that. This one from Old Crow. Thank you for this super chat. I'm starting to notice the Israel lobby seem to have purchased politicians on both sides. Yes. Why do we allow this? What separate Turkey from Israel? What separated Turkey from Israel? I'm assuming that's what that means. But yes, both sides have been purchased off by Israel. There's a couple of industries that have purchased both sides of the aisle. Pharmaceutical industry purchased both sides of the aisle. Weapons manufacturers purchased both sides of the aisle. Israel lobbies have purchased both sides of the aisle. So yes, that is a thing. The next one, JHS. Thank you for your super chat. Even if Aaron became loud, good for him for asking. And I'm with you. This might be a quiet car, but there's people dying, so we're gonna have to pause that quiet car thing. That just simply wouldn't be a thing to me if I was out in Aaron's position. Oh, really? Oh, okay, whatever. That wouldn't have been a thing to me. The best window into the Zionist mind is the 3-minute theme song from the movie Exodus. Google it. And that is from Overdue. Thank you for that super chat. I think there's 3 more. This one here. This is from Kush Renada. Obama was the last great grifter. None of the candidates available in the duopoly has the charisma or intellect hoodwink like he could. Time for change. And I agree. So when people say Joe Biden is doing bad in the polls and they go, well, Obama was doing bad, what does that have to do with Joe Biden? What does one of the top politicians by your own standards have to do with what Joe Biden can achieve? They literally don't have anything to do with one another. Let's move to the next one. This one from Franklin. Thank you for this super chat. Is it up there? Yeah. Keaton, in what way was Trump a failed president? I would make sure to get him to answer that question. But I guess in many ways he was a failed president and failing in what he said he was going to do, build a wall, have Mexico pay for it. He was a failed president and saying something to the effect about what did he say about the military industrial complex? What did he say about draining a swamp? I mean, there's several things in my opinion that he's a failed at. But let's continue. This one is from Sam. Jimmy's outspoken critique of every candidate other than RFK seems to pretty clearly indicate he's a one-issue guy when it's all said and done. That's interesting. Sam, outspoken. That's interesting. I don't have the same assessment of Jimmy's critique of RFK. I just played a video of Jimmy Dore yesterday's stream where he was critiquing RFK about flip-flopping on anti-war. So that super chat doesn't ring true for me, but maybe it does for you. Duped. Thank you for your super chat. The the Israel on Campus Coalition offered to pay students $250 to show up. That's the only way they can get people to show up. Duped is to dupe them. That's funny. All right, DC right here says March for Anti-Semitism would also be an apt slogan for the pro-Israel rally, since Palestinians and Arabs are Semitic people. That is absolutely spot on. It's a point that I've made myself. And all Jimmy Dore care about, COVID is Jimmy Dore's top issue. COVID is Jimmy Dore's top issue by far. And I don't get that being anybody's top issue, but COVID is absolutely Jimmy Dore's top issue. And I think that's the last one. Oh, that was from Sam. That last super chat was from Sam. That was the last one. 13 super chats today. Hit that like button on your way out. I'm going to do one more check to see if they posted another video from March of Israel from Israel. I really want to get one of the politicians, like a Chuck Schumer, a Democratic politicians, and see what they're saying. That's really what I want to see at the march, because you're going to have all the Zionists, like the president of Israel. He's going to say his Zionist shit. So just expect that. But let's do a quick look at, and we're almost at 500 likes. So 40 more people, hit that like button. You'll get us to 500 likes before we end here. Let me refresh my stream to see if there is any new video from them. So let's look. Final time before we get out of here. That's Nick. Oh, that's the video I just played from Mike Johnson. So Nick is commenting on the Mike Johnson video. Glenn Greenwald, is this anti-Semitic? Israel is deliberately using disproportionate force in Gaza and targeting civilian infrastructures in an effort to limit its own losses and showcase its military force, according to the confidential memo. Wow. Israel wants to obliterate Gaza to detour Iran Hezbollah, says Dutch memo. Wow. So it looks like I'm going to be reporting on that. That's from Politico. Looks like I'm going to be reporting on that later. Police arrest at least 300 Jewish protesters for calling for ceasefire. So there's another one. Wow. So it looks like I might have a lot to cover here. So let me retweet this. Already building my next stream with some of these reports. Let me retweet this one from CNN got an exclusive look on the underground in Gaza by embedding with the IDF and letting it exclusively approve everything CNN put on air. Stenographers for mass murder. All right, there's Van Jones. Okay, so right now everybody's on the Van Jones thing. Or is the only clip that everybody's kind of talking about is Van Jones. Doesn't look like anything new. So I am going to finally get out here. There's Sabby Sab also tweeting out the Van Jones. So that's Van Jones is the clip that is kind of going around. Oh, good. I showed this one right
behind me. Is a
guys. Thank you for
list of names of Palestinians that's been killing Gaza since October 7th. Nobody on this fucking list made it to the age of 4. Not one. So listen, I know if you fucking human, you're gonna feel somebody saying this shit. It's not complicated. Don't let nobody tell you that shit. It's not. So listen, I'm gonna give y'all something to do, all right? Cause I know I just presented y'all with emotion. I'm gonna do some shit with it. Go to this fucking website right now.
Please.
Call your reps. Demand a fucking ceasefire. If you don't got service, take a picture. Write it the fuck down, all right? Try you go back to the names. Can y'all say free Palestine? Can y'all say free Palestine? Free Palestine! I love y'all so much. I'm out. Behind me is a list of names of Palestinians that's been killed in Gaza since October 7th. Nobody on this fucking list made it to the age of 4. Not one. So listen, I know if you fucking human, you're gonna feel somebody saying this shit. It's not complicated. Don't let nobody tell you that shit. It's not. So listen, I'm gonna give y'all something to do, all right? Cause I know I just presented y'all with emotion. I'm gonna do some shit with it. Go to this fucking website right now.
Please.
Call your reps. Demand a fucking ceasefire. If you don't got service, take a picture, write it the fuck down, all right? So how you go back to the names? Can y'all say free Palestine? Can y'all say free Palestine? Free Palestine! I love y'all so much. I'm out.